watched episode 2. This one, oh my god, that's the best first kiss I've ever seen. And like, oh my god, I can't believe we're like here after all the time and all the stuff we've talked about. They're just together.
Hello everyone and welcome back. We are in the promised land. We are here. We have arrived. Welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast in the aftermath of season 3, part 1. How are we all doing? We'll say Beans is en route. She's literally driving to us as we speak. Got the other two. How are you doing in this, I don't know, post-apocalyptic, post-rapture state that we're in?
It's crazy. What a lead up.
What a journey, you could say.
Yeah, what a journey. We've just been doing this for so long and now we're changed women. We're out the other side.
Yeah. We're halfway through the dark.
We've seen the kiss. We've seen them fondle. Yeah, bizarre.
We'll talk in a bit about how exactly we watched it because we kind of went against what we'd always said we were going to do.
I didn't. I stayed strong.
But yeah, how are you both doing? Like I say, Beans on her way. I mean, I think we're just sort of recovering.
Yeah.
I'm very calm. I think I was so stressed with the trailer. That was like hanging over us for such a long time. Mm-hmm. But once the trailer dropped, like, I don't know why, but season 3 part 1's just a walk in the park now. I'm just like, doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop.
Yeah.
My husband is sick, so he's been quarantining in the living room for the past couple days, but he loaned me the TV to watch Bridgerton. I've watched it 3 times now, but I woke up this morning and the TV was gone.
It just vanished.
So I feel like my time with the TV is now over. I will have to watch it on my laptop for a while.
3 times when you're done.
Yeah.
Honestly, what a funny old time.
We finally watched it.
Yeah, I will say it was funny how we ended up watching because we did end up chatting here and there.
We always said we were never going to watch it together. And we just accidentally...
It just kind of happened.
Well, Veg, I think you slept in. And then me, you and Beans were just talking.
Yeah.
And then we just started watching the whole thing together. And it was actually so much fun. And then Veg, you caught up and we ended up watching episode 4 together.
Yeah. So I learnt from my Sherlock days that I can't watch and enjoy a show and like... message. I just don't have the attention. So I stayed out of the chat, but I like every now and then, if there was a moment I was stressed about, I would pause and I'd be like, oh, help.
It was really fun.
I remember there was a moment where you were like, guys, I can't move past the brothel scene. And by that point, we were at the end of episode 3 and we were like, emotionally, we are so far beyond that. We can't. I think I was really harsh. I was like, Veg, I literally cannot speak to you right now. We're such different stages of life.
But yeah, it was really fun. It was nice being able to chat off and on because we got to point out things like Lord Cutbill when he appeared on the screen, just being really excited.
Yeah, we're so broken, aren't we? We weren't there being like, first kiss. We were like, ooh, Osterley.
Yeah. And you were like, oh, that's the guy I saw riding by on the horse.
Oh, God.
Yes. I was like, that shot there, I saw that being filmed. I was like, we're doomed. But here we are in the aftermath, as I say.
Yeah. Having watched it the second time, though, my second rewatch was great because I told you guys I got like butterflies 4 times, being able to focus on it more intensely. And it's so good.
Physical, full body feelings.
So good. Such a good season.
I think I'm still processing it. I think I still haven't like actually come to terms with any of it yet.
When big things happen, it like I do think I disassociate a little bit.
Yeah.
Just so hard to like grasp that it's actually happening.
Yeah. And it's just odd because we've waited so long for it.
Yeah, so long.
I mean, we've only seen half of it now, but even just seeing those 4 episodes was just such a bizarre, out-of-world experience.
I think being back in the wait is really strange.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've seen a lot of what we were kind of looking forward to. Like, not that we don't have stuff to look forward to in part 2, but like, you know, we've had the kiss, we've had the carriage scene, we've had the proposal. We've got Polin now.
Yep.
They're going to face some turmoil, but we've got them.
Yeah.
We've got them in a carriage. Happy days.
Yeah.
We didn't know exactly the story beats and we were wrong on so many things, so many twists happened. But the only way I can compare it is we had so much information and like imagery going into it. I felt like we had the map of exactly where we were going.
Yeah.
But when you have a map, the experience of following the map is very different. So like a map is one thing and then following the map and the experience you have along the way.
Yeah.
That's how I describe it. So like Along the way, we're like, oh my God, this has happened. Twists and turns. We got lost along the way.
And then there'd be like the surprise Finch sex scene in the middle.
Finch, we'll get onto him, but Finch, my hero. We love him.
So you guys had an exciting week beyond Bridgerton. What were you guys up to earlier this week?
I mean, it was definitely still Bridgerton based.
Yeah.
Beyond the Bridgerton premiere, beyond the release.
Yes, we did have a very exciting Tuesday.
Yeah.
We got to go see the first episode early.
Yes.
Lecky, you might remember a few weeks ago we told you about there was an ability to watch the episode early in the UK.
Yes.
Like advanced screenings across the country.
Yeah, I think one of our listeners even won tickets to that.
Yeah, our good friend won tickets. It's from the Priority from O2 app. And it's basically an app where if you have O2 or Virgin Media, those customers can just enter, they do like different competitions and they do rewards like pre-sales, queues at gigs. We actually went to the O2 Arena, didn't we, Veg?
Yeah.
In Greenwich.
We did. It was very convenient.
There was an Olivia Rodrigo concert on at the time. Very different demographics.
Is it? Is it?
I don't know.
There are some Olivia Rodrigo Polin coded songs, but yeah.
That's a good point. There is a crossover.
I think we just used Good For You in one of our collages, like an instrumental cover.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was all across the country. So lots of people went to go. We didn't win, but very, very luckily, thank you very much to Priority from O2, we were invited to go to the screening, as I say, at the O2 Arena in Greenwich.
So exciting.
So Veg and I, off we hopped along.
Yeah.
Got to see them on the big screen. It was very surreal.
It was. And from what I can gather, because it was at the O2, we did get slightly more. So there was like a post event afterwards.
Yeah, they had like a VIP.
And they had a couple of actors who were being like Regency era people. And after the screening, they led us all into this like after party where we got like drinks and it was all very nice.
There was a quartet.
Aww.
There was a quartet. And then I think there were like 3 actors in the end. And one of them came up to us and they were like, "What are your names?" And we panicked and said, "The Spinsters."
We had to be like,
"Hello,
here we are."
It's us.
Really leaning into the themes for the season.
Yeah.
Really embracing Pen's journey here.
But we had an amazing time. During the screening, we kept like grasping onto each other because it was the most surreal.
It was just a great time. And yeah, we were sort of watching the screening and it was just so nice to be able to be there with Ovs. And like, as the sort of Netflix N came up,
The to-doom sound.
we were like clutching each other like, oh my goodness. How is this happening? So thank you very much to Priority from O2.
Thank you very much. We had a wonderful time.
Yeah, I had to get that app.
Guys, here we are. So very, very quickly, in a few words, I just want your initial summed up reaction to part 1. Veg, how are you feeling?
It gave me all the feelings I hoped it would. On reflection, story-wise, there are a couple of beats that didn't get hit the way I thought they would, but then also we had more than I was expecting in other areas. So overall, I'm a happy little bunny.
A little carrot, you mean?
A happy little carrot, yes.
Lecky, how are you feeling? What's your gut reaction?
I couldn't be happier. All the Pollen moments just super delivered. They were amazing. They were absolutely amazing. But we also have to now become the What's a Girl Gotta Do to Get Some Peace podcast.
Oh.
A podcast from 4 Franz who wouldn't have met without Franz.
A prawn cocktail.
Yeah.
We will get there. Biggest fans. Well, what I will say in this episode, this is just our initial reactions. We physically cannot go into every single detail. Bear in mind, we're the podcast who in the past has spent an hour talking about a t-shirt.
Yeah.
We spent 2 hours talking about one still from the EW article. Like, we cannot physically cover every single bit. So if there's something you think we've missed,
Sorry.
message us, but also we can't do everything.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to be doing very limited part 2 speculation in this episode because this is our reaction to part 1. We might occasionally sort of like look forward to part 2, but in our next episode, we'll be discussing the little teaser that was at the end. So we'll be covering all of that.
And our ideas for part 2.
Yeah, so we'll be talking more about Penelope and Colin and the timeline and everything like that in our next episode. So, you know, we're going to get there. But I thought, let's go through episode by episode. And what we're just going to do, we're just going to pick up on things we really loved, anything we noticed, anything that really stuck out. So we're not going to cover every scene, but we're going to head on through. So shall we start with episode 1, Out of the Shadows? Our opening episode.
I just have to say, it was so exciting seeing all the details that we noticed during the bath filming leaks, like the baby blue extra, and then Pen's dress just looks like so much more gorgeous on her. And she did time the release for her arrival home, so we were right about that. But it was just so surreal seeing like the footage that we kind of saw teases of in January 2023, finally in movement.
Absolutely. So that's Penelope arriving home. And then, of course, we had Colin arriving home. I was gone the moment he stepped off the ship. I was like, yes. Here we go.
Perfect.
Lecky, what was the immediate thing though? Because the 5 minutes got released 2 days before. But
my reaction to Colin's arrival was, you really weren't intending to do a pirate? There's a fucking parrot. There's a damn parrot the moment he steps off that ship.
What a parrot.
You can't tell me that they put a parrot in Colin's opening scene and thought Marlborough Man. But yeah, great little intro for him.
And then him arriving home, again, those were our original leaks from 2022. So seeing them real was so strange.
Also so scandalous that one debutante who pulls off the glove with her mouth and drops it on the floor. I did not know that was okay. I thought that ladies could kind of covertly drop their glove. I didn't realize you could pull it off with your mouth in front of like a man and drop it.
And it's like, what was he supposed to do, you know?
Yeah.
What was he supposed to do?
Yeah.
I will say, I was a little bit sad that we didn't get the ABC hug, but it forevermore lives in blurry shots past.
Yeah.
So we still have that. And they also cut out the moment where Anthony chastises Colin for his dress.
Yeah.
But again, it lives on in the hearts of blurry set leaks forevermore. So it did still happen. We just didn't see it.
Yeah.
But you know who we did see? Poor little Pen watching Colin. Heartbreaking. And then Lecky, I'm telling you, he did look at her.
Yeah, he does look at her. But I love how I mentioned this in our last episode, she instinctively takes the step toward him. She can't help herself. And he senses her presence and he turns and looks at her.
Yeah.
I don't know if he saw her for sure or not.
Oh, I think he did.
He looks that direction, and that's that still that we got, right?
Yeah, from Tudum. I think he did.
Editor's note, a very clever fan figured out that the audio description version of season 3, episode 1 does point out that Colin did see her, and in fact they locked eyes. Thank you very much to the Bridgerton gods for your services. I'm just happy that he reacts as if he knows that she's there, because all along I've said that she's the north on his compass, and for him to just like turn toward her.
Yeah.
And then I think the Polin theme starts for like the first time when you first see him walking towards his family and she's watching him. The beautiful soaring Polin theme. Amazing.
But I think he did see it, and the first thing I said to Veg when we saw it originally was, what I really like about episode 1, because Colin is acting, isn't he? He has this facade, which we'll discuss in a bit.
Yeah.
But I think so much of that episode is Pen seeing the worst bits and the worst moments.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think she thinks that he kind of saw her and ignored her. And all these moments keep happening where she keeps catching him, like flirting with girls and doing this, and she doesn't pay enough attention. She doesn't hold on him long enough to see he's actually not doing great. Actually, it's a facade.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think normally she would see that in him. If you think back to 202, she recognised he wasn't doing well. But I think she's still so coloured by what happened in 208 in this first episode that he's fallen from grace, that I think she kind of assumes the worst in him sometimes throughout the episode.
Yeah.
And she takes it out on him. So like the Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton scene will come to later. I think it's important that she sees these moments where she thinks he's either very, very different to how she remembers him, and bearing in mind that she now has a different perspective of him because he fell from grace. And that's what leads up to her writing that later on.
Yeah.
So I think he did see her, and what happened is he got distracted by his siblings, but Pen interpreted that differently.
Yeah.
But there we go, the opening of the season, both of them back where we needed them.
So then we have the Lady Whistledown voiceover as we see Penelope in the modiste. I just love how she's like uplifting those debutantes, but notably absent from the list is Miss Livingston, Genevieve Chenor, who ends up being almost worse than Cressida this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the debutantes we see for the first time is Miss Stowell, and Lady Stowell, her mother, and I just want to say like apologies because I think I mistook Lady Livingston for Sophie Woolley, who plays Lady Stowell in our Crumbs days.
Which we will get to in Say It All Together Now.
Lockmore Part
2.
As you know, we have a tendency to read a little too much into things at times, but in this scene, Penelope picks up and then sets down a pair of Bridgerton blue gloves, perhaps because she no longer thinks that she has a place in that family.
So we're back in the ton. Obviously, Francesca's got to have a little presentation. One thing that I love, because obviously we haven't discussed this on the podcast yet because it kind of all happened at once. We got the music.
Yeah.
The music dropped a few days before the season did. And the first track was the funeral march. And that ends up being what Francesca plays, which is
so clever.
Funny and clever and tragic.
Yeah. It's like a funeral dirge that reflects both her feelings about her upcoming presentation, because she's not super looking forward to it. But more than that, it's just such clever foreshadowing for her very tragic future with John.
How dark is that?
I know, right?
I love stuff like that. That's like Benedict wearing a bee every day. I love it. But of course, one thing to touch on, as I said, the opening title, seeing Colin's name on the tree at long last.
That was our big clutch each other moment.
I have long been like, that's the goal. That's what I cannot wait to see. And we saw it. Then, obviously, we headed into the presentation.
John Glazer mentioned that the green cravat that Colin is wearing in the scene is a little nod to Polin and their relationship. But he also, in a behind-the-scenes video, said that this waistcoat holds Easter eggs for something that happens later in the season. So if there are any flower enthusiasts out there, take a look at this footage and see if you can figure out what he might be referring to.
But of course, this is what he wears to the presentation, where he slips in and talks to Eloise. And I thought this was really interesting, setting up for how Colin and Eloise both see that they're on a path that doesn't feel authentic to who they are, and they recognise that within each other.
Yeah.
And they show concern for it.
Yeah, this is the first moment where Colin notices that something is wrong with Elle. And then later this episode, she notices that he's not quite himself either. In fact, later this episode, she speculates that Colin is lonely. We see that revisited several times through the next few episodes. Like in his journal entry, he admits even in intimate moments with other women, he feels such a great distance. And then when he's conversing with Lord Fife and co., he asks if they find it lonely to be so cavalier about intimate relationships with women. And what is missing for him, I think, is the emotional connection that he finds with Penelope. And in episode 2, I think, Colin also tells Penn that he enjoyed traveling because no one knew him. But in his journal entry, we see that also bothered him. He likes that they didn't know he was a Bridgerton, but he also felt lonely because no one saw the real him either. So I just really love this theme that he was lonely because he was missing that deep, intimate connection that he later finds with Penelope in these 4 episodes.
Why was he missing it on his travels?
She wasn't writing to him.
She didn't fucking write back, did she? That's why.
Sad.
And Jess Brownell has confirmed that that's what did send him on his little journal path, as we suspected, which I just love.
Love it.
Obviously, we went to check in on the Featheringtons. We've wondered so many times in the past, were they going to have money? Were they going to have been found out about Jack? What was going to happen? We have our answers.
Little nod to the books.
Yeah, it was a little nod.
Yeah, they pretended that their recently deceased great aunt Petunia left them a bunch of money.
Yeah, and that was like a setup for quite a big storyline.
Yeah. And then Varley kind of expresses some skepticism whether or not the solicitor Dundas will believe that story. And Portia responds by saying, for all they know, Aunt Petunia could have been hiding jars of coin under her floorboards. That's followed by Varley declaring that the truth has a way of rearing its ugly head. And this seems like setup for the Penn Lady Whistledown storyline because, of course, hilariously, Portia has no idea that her own daughter has money hidden under her own floorboards.
Yeah.
And the truth does seem like it will come to light about Lady Whistledown.
And then, Lecky, there was a moment that broke our hearts as soon as we heard it, where Portia asked Penelope if she's done with daydreaming.
Yes.
And Penelope says that she is.
Yes, she agrees.
Oh my God.
So sad.
But setting up all the dreaming, again, which had a huge payoff this season.
We'll come back to that in our episode 2 discussion.
Yeah, there's definitely a connection. But off we went to the Livingston party, had a great time.
I love the scene of Kate stopping to smell the flowers, foreshadowing that she's not quite ready to leave her honeymoon behind. Just a clever little detail.
And we shared this on social media, but that is a gorgeous reference to, I'm like convinced it's a reference to The Soul of the Rose. And John Glazer, in a recent interview with InStyle, a really fascinating behind the scenes featurette, said that they wanted to set it up so that the costumes and moments look like paintings. And I think you can see that in so many shots where they do look like paintings. Like I've said before that Penelope looks like a pre-Raphaelite painting all the time.
Yeah, like window pen and the fantasy scene. Yeah.
That's a painting, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me about the Livingston party is that instantly I could see Colin's hollowness behind his eyes straight away. Do you know, in that montage where he was just going around and saying the same things, I could just see straight away that it was a facade. And I was so glad to see him still in there, even though he was very clearly struggling. Because we had been worried that the swagger was going to be real. But as soon as I saw him, I really got what was going on. And like I said earlier, it really changed the way I saw all the scenes in episode episode 1 after that, which is something that I don't think Penelope did. I think Penelope saw the facade.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, you're so right.
Because she was still hurt and reeling and everything like that.
Well, she knew Colin best, honestly.
I think she thought that she knew him best, which she did.
Yeah.
But after 208, I think it made her question everything that was only resolved by his apology when she realised he was still in there.
Yeah, and I feel like that's most apparent at the Four Seasons ball when he runs out after her, because during the clip that they originally released, you don't really realize that there's a genuineness to him following Penelope out of that ball.
But yeah, I think she thought that she no longer really knew who he was, or that she'd misjudged him because of 208. Yeah. And then I think that when he came back seemingly changed, I think she kind of bought into it a little bit. And they had that moment at the Livingston Ball where she didn't really give him chance to break through. She just fucked off, understandably. But there was a couple of interesting moments in that exchange, though.
Yeah.
Colin says to Penelope, when all is said and done, it is merely clothing, referring to his new getup, of course. But that's so relevant to Penelope's own glow up as well, because she tries on this new look and it completely fails for her because it is not her appearance that is the problem.
But it was so interesting how that moment with him where he was saying, he was trying to convey to her, this isn't real, it's just dressing. But because she thought he had actually changed, and because she later says, you find it so easy to step back into society, she was like, oh, it's just clothing, it's merely clothing, that's all I need to do.
Yeah.
So it had this moment which we see later in other episodes where they accidentally keep inspiring each other to do things for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And then obviously she goes to Medice, as we saw, and Jen wraps her in that lilac fabric, which, Lecky, what does it represent?
First love. So it's kind of like Genevieve is actually wrapping her in love. And then when Jen asks if Penn has a suitor in mind for the season, she drapes this green fabric over her, which is again hinting at the Polin relationship.
Love it.
Although Penn declares that she's going to be sensible this season when it comes to her search for a husband, she then goes on to ask for a wardrobe in a Parisian style, purely because Colin earlier admitted that he was wearing fashion from Paris as well. She just can't stop thinking about him.
I loved that. It felt like a translation of the, she's reading the book about Greece when Colin's coming back.
In Romancing Mr. Bridgerton.
This is like the same. You can tell the love's still there.
Yeah. She can't quite help herself. And in an interview, the costume team said that her little necktie she wears in episode 2 is inspired by Colin's cravats. I love how she's like, if you're not going to wear the cravats, someone's gonna have to. So she's like, I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting because that same InStyle clip with John Glazer, he was talking about his cravat was meant to be kind of almost translucent, and the necktie that Penelope wears has also that kind of translucent quality to it.
I really liked how that scene with Penn and Jen went. It's nice to see their relationships kind of matured and they're just so comfortable around each other.
I know, yeah.
Really enjoyed that scene, and I hope we see a little bit more. Maybe she'll help a bit later on.
And then off he went to the Bridgertons with a little bit of gift giving. He's a giver, as we know, as we're going to find out. But there was presents on the table here. So he brought back some gifts. What did we all get?
This is one of my favorite shots in the entire episode, maybe even in the entire 4 episodes that we received. But Greg aims his bow and arrow at Colin's heart when they're unveiling the gifts here. Colin, our matchmaking Cupid this season, he purchased this bow for Gregory, and yet the arrow is aimed at his own heart, which is kind of a great allusion to the Cupid and Psyche myth.
So clever.
Oh my gosh.
He's been struck.
I did not notice that.
It is also worth pointing out that Gregory, our little Cupid in training, is wearing a lilac cravat in this scene as he is taking aim at Colin's heart.
Yeah, and then he also gave a gift to Violet, which when he got out that box, it just screamed. I was like, oh my God, he's giving her a compass. I don't know why, but I was like, it's a compass. And then it was a watch, which lovely. But
playing into the theme of time.
Well, it's nice because it's like she's in a new season of her life.
Yeah.
But then it's recurring. If you look, there are so many clocks around, which is really leading into the TikTok of episode 5, which feels very ominous. What did he get for Elle?
He got her a book, but she's more interested in the book that she's currently reading, which is Emma. I really wanted some Emma references this season. I didn't think it would happen quite like this, where Elle would reveal that she was reading Emma, but it ends up triggering this great conversation between Colin and Elle.
And also in this scene, Colin says, what of Penelope, which is an amazing callback.
Little throwback. We've got matching lines. Love it.
Yeah. A little callback to season 1.
To the what of Colin, which Beans has recited many times and we're obsessed with, and I wanted to scream, but I was in the cinema, so I didn't.
And then we had a quick stop at the Medice again with Peneloise. We had a previous still of this where I think we thought that Eloise was going to be a lot colder this season, but I love the direction they took. It's that line she said about she was tired of losing. So she decided to join the winning side. It's heartbreaking, but she didn't wish any ill will on Pen.
Yeah.
But she just wanted to move on. So many heartbreaking moments. And then, of course, they went to the good old Four Seasons.
Oh, before they go to the Four Seasons ball, I just love that scene where Penelope asks, it made me tear up, where she asks Ray if she could try something a little different tonight. And then we have her makeover. I teared up watching that. I was so emotional.
Yeah.
And then I just also had a funny comment. I have to wonder how none of the other Featheringtons had any remarks about her showing up to the ball in that massive red cape. I mean, it's such a good moment, her unveiling her new look, but I'm just surprised that none of the Featheringtons, Portia didn't have any comments about her glaringly red cape.
Speaking of Portia, I really liked that moment at the Livingston party where it became clear that if Prudhank or the Finches were in charge of running their house, it would be miserable for Penelope, but also it'd be miserable for Portia.
Yeah.
And it really sets up that interesting dynamic of Portia really doesn't want either of them to run it.
Yeah, they're plotting to get rid of Varley.
Yeah, she's going to be like locking Polin in rooms all the time, be like, get away, kids, knock yourselves out.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting. It almost set up like an alliance between Pen and Portia.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the book line's about, at least I've got you in my old age. But, of course, at the Four Seasons ball, we had that reaction. Do you know how they did that with the cape? It was magnets, apparently, which is why it came off so smoothly. Gorgeous. And then we had A, B, C, D, E, F, U playing, which was a really, like, delicate version of the song, I think. And we saw Colin's reaction. But, I mean, I knew she was going to fail spectacularly with the other guys. I cannot watch that scene. Do you know when she's talking to the suitors?
Oh, it's painful to rewatch it.
What I love when she was like embarrassing herself and it was awful, I love that Eloise kept looking over at her.
Oh, yeah.
And she was just so pained and so concerned for her. And that constant concern for Pen just permeated the entire season. And I think that's going to run out in part 2.
Yeah.
For me, what stuck out during that exchange is how they both aren't fitting into their own social situations at that ball, because Eloise is clearly struggling to relate to the conversation about stitches, and she makes that joke about how she's interested in the shift stitch because she would like to shift the conversation to another topic, and no one laughs. And I was like, Penelope would have laughed at that joke. They're just missing each other.
She'd have loved it. But I mean, Eloise is just too hurt. But I just love how considerate, and she just looks out for her still the whole time. Then obviously after that, Penelope went over by herself to sort of withdraw again. And I loved that she was eating like ice cream or a really cold dessert, and she got brain freeze from something icy, just as who stepped up, Lecky?
Debbers.
I mean, foreshadowing the penguins from the first second, right?
He's not Bugman anymore, he's Iceman.
He's not Bugman, he's Penguin Man.
Didn't they say he was going north, which is the Arctic, right?
No, he was going Antarctic.
No, I know, but then he said something about going north, which is the Arctic.
No, I thought it was Antarctic.
Someone said the Antarctic, but I feel like they may have got their Arctics wrong. They said they were going north, which is the Arctic, and I don't think there are penguins in the Arctic. Who knows?
Hang on, let me check.
Just before we go too far down the Arctic train.
I'm already pitching up my tent there. Antarctic.
Okay, it is the Antarctic.
Which is the south, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe the map was upside down in those days.
So there are penguins.
They mentioned the Great Northwest Passage. Maybe he was just intrigued by the Northwest Passage, but he's going the other way.
Maybe he's taking the scenic route to the Antarctic.
That's why it's going to take him 3 years to get there, or whatever.
It's going to take him forever.
Yeah.
Look, he's off somewhere cold, and Pen doesn't want to go with him.
I have to say, I gasped audibly when her dress was ripped, even though it was coming.
Yeah.
I was horrified for Penelope.
So painful.
And as much as I feel like they are showing how much Eloise is also hurt by the rift with Penelope, that moment when Penelope looks at Eloise, knowing that she has befriended Cressida, the person who has just done this to her, it's horrible. Like, as much as obviously Eloise feels bad in that situation, it is such a betrayal.
Yeah.
It's a moment that was set up at Livingston when she first saw it and couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But then it just compounds it so deeply. And what it does is really put Pen in this really dark mindset in that moment.
Yeah.
Where obviously she runs out of the ball and she's so upset. And who does she go past?
She brushes past Colin, who immediately takes notice of her.
Immediately.
And notices that she is upset. In episode 4, Violet goes on to explain how sensitive Colin is.
Always looking out for others.
And how he's always looking out for others. And here he instantly knows that Penelope is upset. And he, like in 202, he abandons his friends and immediately goes after her, kind of setting up like like him running after her the entire season.
And he says something to his friends, doesn't he? He's like, she looks upset. And this is a moment that she doesn't see.
Yeah.
And that we hadn't seen when we saw the Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton scene. We hadn't seen that. And bear in mind, she thinks that he's ashamed of her.
Yeah.
And he's immediately straight after her. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God. And then we go into the Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton scene, which we've seen and discussed before, but I think it was so different watching it this time. I've been so critical of Colin because he'd felt like really like, not slimy, but he'd felt like really like
smarmy,
charming, and smarmy.
Yeah.
And what I realised is like I'd completely seen that the way that Penn had seen it.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas seeing this now with the full context, I was like, oh, he's completely still in there. His priorities are still in the exact same place they always were.
Yeah.
And it just transformed the scene for me.
Same.
But not for Penn, because off she went and she wrote a little little issue in Whistledown.
I loved that scene of her angrily writing.
That was like a proper like Mean Girls moment, wasn't it? Colin Bridgerton is a slimy little shit and I hate him.
Do not trust him.
It 100% was. And it was so reactionary and it was so driven by everything else that had gone on in that episode, I think, as well. And he just really cops for it. And we were like, don't do it, Penn. Penn, don't do it. Yeah.
Oh, I loved it. Next to me, you were like, oh no. And I was like, yeah. I tell you though, listener, I'm Team Colin now. More details to come.
Oh, that's right.
The fact that you fucking weren't before and you've been here for a year winds me the fuck up, Veg, to be honest.
I said he's a nice man on the reg.
I don't want to hear it. And you know what? We'll tell you why she's changed later and it's a really funny reason.
Moving on to the garden scene, which may be one of my favorites in these first 4 episodes. Continues to be my favorite, even though we've seen so many of the other scenes. Such a beautiful scene.
And he came to her, right? Again, which we're going to see over and over again. Yep. And it really was a love confession.
I know. Yeah, yeah. And that extra line where he admits that Penn is the only person who has made him feel appreciated. Yeah. Oh, my little Polin heart. Oh, so good.
He says something like, you helped me see the world in ways I could never have imagined.
Yeah.
And that is just so beautiful. Just want to touch on the fact that no way did he go to 17 cities in 4 months.
Yeah.
Literally impossible. He could not have done that.
I liked that he said he told Penn how many it was, but not his brothers. His brothers were like, how many? And he was like, oh, I couldn't even count.
He didn't want to tell his brothers.
I think maybe he just felt comfortable sharing that with her because she didn't write to him, and all along during his travels, he just wanted to tell her what he was doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. He wanted her to be kind of part of that journey with him.
Last time he came back in season 2, everyone just mocked him.
Yeah.
Or didn't want to hear it. And so like when he came back this time and his brothers were like, oh, I thought you couldn't shut up last time. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. The travels that he had this time clearly meant a huge amount to him.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to open himself up for that just to be like ridiculed. All he'd wanted was to tell Penn, like she was the only person he wanted to tell, and he hadn't been able to because she hadn't replied to him.
That's a good point. I just also wonder if maybe the fact that Penelope didn't write him kind of factored into it, because I feel like during his travels last time, she was there with him, writing to him, you know, hearing about his experiences and commenting on them. So maybe he came home and one of the first things he wanted to do was tell her about what he wasn't able to share with her because he wished that she was there in the form of her letters.
But I totally agree. Absolutely gorgeous scene. And I think obviously we have a really, really heartfelt apology that really works, because I think for a lot of people thought that we were going to be really stuck on this plot point for a very long time. You could easily make this one issue the entire narrative arc of the whole 4 episodes. You could easily get rid of the suitor plot and just make their main conflict the fact that she can't get past what he said. And they didn't, right? So we had to resolve it. Now, it's a different question as to whether this is actually to the bone resolved or whether it will come back up later in the season. But do you think she was able to move past it so quickly because in that moment when he was there in front of her, just the two of them, she actually realised who he genuinely was?
Yeah, I think she saw that the real him is still in there beyond the new pirate getup. Yeah,
he's still there.
Just the way she smiled at the end of the scene was just like she's still like we had the moment before. Like it was just so good to see that. Sure, she's like angry or whatever. Good night, Mr. Bridgerton, but you can tell with the way she looked and stepped towards him and the arrival scene and the way she smiled, just like...
She really trusted that he was still there.
Yeah, and she just loves him.
And there was that moment of just relief and love again, and almost like she was letting the love flood back in that she'd been holding away.
Yeah.
But then there was an awful moment where she realised when Whistledown had arrived, she realised exactly what she'd done. And it all came back.
Yeah.
And she runs inside and immediately starts defending Colin to her siblings. Philippa instantly was like, yeah, Colin, interesting.
Yeah.
But then obviously we went over to the Bridgerton house and we found out exactly what was written in there.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that throughout this whole season, Eloise knows exactly who Penn is. Mm-hmm. And in this moment, it was that dual concern where she was trying to protect him from reading it. Mm-hmm. But then she also knows who wrote it.
Yeah, and asks him if he has any idea. But I feel like that's out of concern for Penelope.
Yeah, because she could easily be there like, why the fuck have you said this about my brother? Yeah. But I think she recognises the hurt as well that Penelope is going through.
Yeah, and the truth in it, too, that he isn't being himself.
Well, you know what? She was brutal, but she
read him for filth.
Yeah.
She absolutely did, Reg. She truly, truly did. Do you think it pushed him more into his facade in episode 2 as a way to cope with how much it hurt him?
100%.
To be called out.
That is 100% what leads him into the brothel.
Okay, no, I don't want to blame Penelope for the brothel. No, I'm not accepting this, Leggy. No.
It's not Penelope, it's Lady Whistledown.
No, it literally wasn't anything to do with Lady Whistledown. No, I'm not having that. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's 100% her fault for basically blasting him and saying that part of his personality is fake.
Because he was so wounded by that assessment. As we see in sort of episode 4, he was so wounded that then he puts on the armour that Violet talks about.
Yep.
And he's like, fine. Yeah. I'll just go in with this. And you can see he's still dying inside it. They're still not him, but it's such a Penn kind of moment.
I have to say, as much as we didn't want to see the angry Colin from the books, Newt's performance here is just electric. He played it so well, and it's such an amazing cliffhanger for the first episode.
He knew how that moment was going to hit.
Amazing.
And it sets up just the most brilliant storyline of...
Yeah.
Obviously, we know he's going to fall in love with Penn and he's out there to destroy Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
Everyone said it. Only he could have friends to lovers and enemies to lovers with the same bloody person. Well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a cliffhanger. What a brilliant moment. And again, Eloise could have easily been like, yeah, go for it. I fucking hate that bitch. And she doesn't. She's trying to protect him and
Penelope.
And Penn.
Yeah.
But what an ending. So overall thoughts, episode 1?
Fun, great setup.
I loved it. I was so relieved that the swagger was a facade and that sweet sensitivity that we know from Colin is still there.
And the reconciliation was beautiful.
Yeah.
Them finally being on that even playing field.
Yeah, it was a classic Bridgerton setup as well, you know, with the plan like in season 1. So it was great, like promise for the rest of the 4 episodes.
Perfectly friend-zoning Penn into the mindset so she's good to go, which leads us perfectly into episode 2, How Bright the Moon. I think there's a beanlet on the way, by the way, so watch out. She's going to pop in at some point. But we start with the beginning of the lessons then. And we're straight in with Promenade Polin. I love that Colin's still upset about Lady Whistledown. So it's definitely carried over into this episode and it's definitely shaping the way he acts in this episode. And Penn assures him she's never been more wrong about anyone. And Lecky, there's a very interesting line from Colin here.
Yes, he tells Penn that he'd like to dance on the day of Lady Whistledown's demise, which makes me wonder if maybe the Lady Whistledown reveal may happen after a ball or a Polin dance, perhaps in the latter half.
Wow, I love something like that. He's so mad and consumed by it. And Penn, it just must make her just like die inside every single time he says something like that. But we get interrupted because the Lord Squad's ahead and Colin says men are quite simple beings, and then we go in. I can bear this scene, you know, this isn't...
This one's not as bad as some of the other ones. Yeah, for sure.
Because he's there encouraging her and he's clearly very besotted with it. But it's then followed by that adorable clip of Penn throwing herself onto her bed.
Yes, love it.
I loved that.
In exasperation. She does it again later.
Yeah, love both of those.
And then Colin does it later, but in a very different way. But there is something... Did you guys notice what was missing from this part of the episode?
No to-doom market scene. I think maybe they cut this because Polin ended up going to the market again in this episode, so maybe they thought it'd be too repetitive.
I literally thought about that mid-run this morning. I was like, hey, did we get the market scene? I don't think we did. I was like, no, they were definitely at a market, but I'm so glad you've cleared it up.
Which, we'd sort of described as like a what a Barb moment. Gone.
I know.
On the editing floor.
I know. It's sad. I wish we'd gotten both, but it makes sense to not show 2 scenes that are kind of like...
Very similar.
They're similar beats, Oh, well.
It can live in the graveyard along with that 206 cut that we've lost in the ABC hub. Don't worry, I'm going to cheer you guys up now. We're going to go on a little journey together. We're going to go on a little trip.
Fuck off.
We're going to go hang out at the brothel.
This scene, kudos to the writers, your great team, everyone involved in the production is a wonderful person. But I just have to say, this scene was worse than I was expecting, because people had warned us about it, we'd heard about it, we'd had a little freak out.
Thank God it had been leaked is what I will say. Thank God we knew about it in advance.
And some people had said like, oh, actually, people we kind of knew were like, it's not that bad. And I was like, okay, great. But no, it was that bad. It was fucking awful and I hated it. And I was like, why am I watching Colin make out with someone? And why does he look so hot? Like, excuse me? It didn't happen.
Lucky, because we were messaging each other at the same time that it was happening, we were like, it's going to happen. How did you know the brothel scene was coming up?
You said the brothel could appear at any moment when I said, it's probably right after the fertility line, foreshadowing. God. And it was.
Oh, God. That was the only time I paused in the whole watch. And I messaged you like, fuck!
You're like, I can't continue.
Fuck! I was like, please, does it get better? Tell me it gets better.
Yeah, and at that point we were like happier than ever. So
God.
We were like, it's fine. I
think let's just write that scene off. It didn't happen.
I do feel at least like there was justification for this one. That kind of Lady Whistledown pushed him into it, that he needed to reinforce that the new him is real, even though it isn't. Whereas that
makes it worse for me.
I mean, I feel like that's his character motivation, is that he needed to reinforce that his new persona was real. So he went to do this.
Yeah.
But I have less justification for the second brothel scene that we'll get to later on. I feel like that one wasn't needed. Whereas this one, at least like in a storytelling sense, it made sense to me why this happened.
Could have done without it.
Yeah.
I feel like the beats it was conveying, we got elsewhere.
Yeah, especially for the second one. But for this one, I at least understand what they were going for. But for the second one, I feel like they could have cut it and you still would have gotten the same story. But anyway, we'll get there.
But Colin, you're late for an appointment. Begrudgingly get out of bed.
Yeah.
Go see Pen, for fuck's sake. Look, we're fine. We're at the market. Let's just move past it. Adorably, he's waiting by the feather stand. Do you think he was like, oh, Pen, should we wait? Should we meet by the feathers? And just like, stop it. And they have this little interlude where he's like, actually, now that I've seen you in action, you don't need lessons. He was properly eating that moment up earlier. So then we had the conversation, very bittersweet moment for all of us, I think, where they talked about their first meeting. Yeah. And it was pretty much exactly like the book in terms of the setup. He did fall from a horse, he did fall in mud, and they had that moment. But there is a tragic implication with this.
As soon as it was out of their mouths, we were like, oh.
Probably no baby Polin, but this exchange is adorable.
Well, I think it's confirmed that there's no baby Polin because in an interview, Nick and Newt were asked, which scene do you wish had been included?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we really wanted a flashback because we wondered who they would cast as the younger us. So I'm really sad about the no baby Polin flashback. I am glad that they referenced it.
Hilariously, Nicola also commented about how they probably couldn't throw a kid off a horse, which was one of our thoughts as well.
I've said before, like, I've Googled it to ask if it's legal. And they probably did the same. They probably found that it is illegal to throw a child from a horse. But what I loved about the meet cute line was he said that he was minding his own business. I was assaulted by a devilishly yellow head covering. And then he said, wind or not, you certainly seemed pleased when I landed in the mud. You were so very charming about, when Penelope was apologising. And I thought it's so interesting that Colin thinks that she was the charming one in that moment.
Aw.
Because in the book, she's like really scared and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But here, they had a really playful moment where she thought it was really funny. And he got up and he thought he was charmed by her.
Yeah.
And although we didn't see it, I wonder if that kind of got into his DNA as that fun safe space for him.
He also kind of hints that she teased him about what happened when they were children.
Yeah.
And I feel like in all of the Polin scenes that we've had so far, there haven't really been moments where we've seen Pen teasing Colin. So I wonder towards the end of the season if we'll see some of that where she finally feels comfortable enough to behave kind of like children again, where she can kind of tease him or rib him a little bit without being completely insecure.
Well, that's what Colin alludes to. He says, you know why you could do that? Because we were kids, we weren't as self-conscious. And I wonder if it's a transformation that when they were little, they were on like a much more even playing field. Equal. And their age difference didn't matter and they were just more equal. But then obviously as they grow up and, you go through like puberty and things like that and like you get older. And as Penelope became really aware of how much she adored him when she was a teenager, that then she became really shy about it. And because she put him on the pedestal when he got older and that's where the power imbalance came from as they grew up. oh, would have loved to have seen it. And then it was really heartbreaking that Pen said that her safe space was Sunday teas at Bridgerton House, and that's where she felt most comfortable. Colin remembers that later in the episode. But it's so bittersweet because that's gone for her now.
Yeah, it's Penelope who breaks out of the moment because he's asking her to describe, you know, the place where she felt more comfortable. And I think in describing how comfortable she felt at Bridgerton House, she also realized that she was kind of describing how at ease she feels with him, and she kind of needs to break out of that moment.
Yeah.
She says she has to go.
Very ominously says, we should get back before we had noticed.
Yeah.
The whole episode, I was like, these clowns are going to be caught because the lack of subtlety that, especially him, like everyone's seen them together, but I didn't think it would go as bad as it went, which we will get to. But then we headed off into our lessons. We had a little card game first. Lecky, how thrilled are you and relieved to the bones are you that we didn't go brothel card game lessons?
I'm very relieved that they didn't go from the brothel into the remarkable shade of blue scene.
That would have broken my heart.
But they did go brothel into a lesson scene of sorts. There was a Polin scene.
Oh, a remarkable shade of bean. Beans, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
Beans, lovely to have you. We're just in episode 2. We're currently about to begin the lesson scene. Pen's just about to rock up.
Let's go on to lessons.
You've missed the brothel, but we will be going back later, so don't fear you've not missed out altogether. But off we go to actually commence the one and only lesson that happens at Bridgerton House.
One lesson.
That plan goes to absolute shit. You can appreciate he had a plan, a splendid plan. It was just a bit of a shit idea. But obviously we have the scene that we saw the other day where he greets her in the hallway and just happily marches on up.
Yeah.
He's like, welcome, welcome. And Pen sort of reiterates that she doesn't feel comfortable there anymore. She's like, yes, I told you I felt comfortable beforehand.
Yeah.
And you just dragged me back. He's just so wrapped up in it. And then he guides her upstairs. But oh my God, Lecky, what does he do?
He platonically leads Penelope into the empty drawing room with his hand on her back.
It's such like a husbandly thing to do as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all lost our minds there, I think.
But off they head and they begin the remarkable shade of blue scene, which we've much loved, much discussed, but we got a lot more of the context, including the setup for how they go into that scene.
Yeah, so if you remember from episode 1, there was that conversation with Penelope and Portia where she says that she's given up on daydreaming. And here Colin is like, imagine it with me, Pen. He's basically saying, daydream with me, Pen. And she kind of hesitates, but then she falls into it with him. She lets herself get lost in the moment with him.
Yeah, his little setup as well.
He sort of sketches this moment of make-believe.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, you know, here's people dancing, here's the band, here's the lemonade table. I was like, oh my God.
I think that's gorgeous.
Here's an eligible suitor.
And the eligible suitor is him. And she's like, what do you mean it's you? And he goes, what a better person to practice on.
I know, right?
I'm the only one here. What a shame. Oh, I love the setup for this. And Lecky, I said it to you that, and I don't know if you guys agree, but you know the scene closest to my heart and soul is our good old Berkeley Square. And I said at the time when we watched this, I think this is Berkeley Square.
Well, I think this may be the dialogue portion, but make your point.
I feel like the tone of it is Berkeley Square because Berkeley Square is like very bittersweet. But what it is when you read it in the books is he steps into the moment and he sort of sketches this world for her. And he's saying, come into this imaginary world with me from the rest of the world for a moment. And it's him bringing her into this imaginary world, which is so interesting considering he's going to go dream of her later. And I feel like that's what Berkeley Square is. It's bittersweet, but it's him creating this world for the two of them to exist in for this moment.
Yeah.
I want the dance, obviously, in the park, but if this is kind of the best we get, I think I'm at peace.
Yeah.
We might still get the dance, but I could see how this could have been inspired by their conversation in the Berkeley Square scene in the book.
I feel like if we got a dance in part 2, it would kind of not be Berkeley Square, because to me, Berkeley Square isn't them just like dancing in a public place. It's about the fact that they're not quite together and it's bittersweet for them and she's hesitant and he's like, come with me in this moment.
I understand what you're saying about the tone of the season, but from the writers, they were sketching out their plans for the season and they're like, we really want to include this element of the Berkeley Square scene. They could have totally split it up where they're like, okay, well, tonally, this conversation would fit here in the lesson scene, but we really want this moment, this cinematic moment of them dancing outdoors together. And that could be in part 2 somewhere.
I don't think, and I've been a little bit skeptical about this before, I don't think that they're going to have a dancing in the rain scene because it'd be too much like season 1.
Yeah, we're thinking it might be in the Featherington Garden or something, maybe following like an assuredly, fervently, loudly type moment, perhaps.
Yeah.
But you know what? If we don't get it, I think I'm at peace with it being this, because that is so beautiful how he created that world for her.
Yeah.
And obviously they have the remarkable shade of blue. He loses his little mind.
Aww.
And he does rush her out as we thought because Eloise is nearby. And it does incite the journal scene. How surreal was it to watch that play out?
It was crazy.
Yeah, when she looked over at the book.
Like, it's happening.
I think one detail that we really liked is that she immediately makes a beeline for his pirate coat and touches the pirate coat.
Oh my
And
God.
strokes it.
Yeah.
She stroked the pirate. I mean, wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
That was amazing.
We all want to do that, girl. She's living it. Someone's like, I thought she was going to smell it. And no judgment. No judgment. If you want to, Anthony would. Anthony's always bloody smelling stuff. And it's like she stumbled into his world.
Yeah.
And I just, loved it. What do you think about what Colin was writing? I really don't mind it. I love what he was writing.
Yeah.
It's not super salacious. I saw some people compare it to erotica. It wasn't quite erotica. But what struck me, as I mentioned earlier, is that he describes how lonely he feels in those connections with other people. Something is missing for him.
Right.
Yeah, he has a sexual experience, but for him it fundamentally isn't enough.
Yeah, he feels a distance from his partners.
And naturally, that's the moment that she stops reading, so she really doesn't get much further than that. But and I think it's so important for us to learn that it isn't enough for him.
Yeah.
So when we've seen the brothel scene, for him it is that sort of very physical act, but he's disconnected from it and he needs the emotion that he finds in Pen.
Yeah.
A funny thing before we get into the moment that happens right after this, I love that after Penelope he leaves, he goes over to look and see what she was reading in his journal.
Yeah, he's like, fuck.
Which bit was it?
Yeah, it's like, it wasn't the fucking passage about the boat moving along. It was a passage about me fucking stroking freckles. And we do get Colin's anger, and I loved this portrayal of anger, because when we did our book reread, we weren't a fan of how he was in the journal scene. And I think there's a difference between being upset with someone and making them feel scared.
Right. Yeah.
And he was angry, but in an authentic way. And you see the vulnerability within him, where it's coming from as well.
I think one of the things, too, about the journal scene, too, is it's not even necessarily anger. It might just be a little bit of embarrassment and self-consciousness as well. And it is a personal journal, so he might have been scared that he wrote about feelings that he was having, etc. Like deeper feelings than just feeling that loneliness,
He's still got his facade at this point. Even around Pen, he's still got the bit of facade.
Exactly.
And we know that he started writing the journal because she wasn't replying to him. And it has been promised that we're going to return more to the journal and more to writer Colin and to his vulnerabilities around Penelope's writing in part 2. So we only had flashes of it in part 1, and I really, really want to see more in part 2, but that's all going to come back around.
Yeah.
I will say regarding his journal entry too, I kind of speculated, or I have said before that I kind of wanted his journal entry to be kind of about Penelope in a way, and how he was maybe looking at the moon or something like that on his travels and feeling loneliness or thinking of home. And there was an element of that. It didn't quite play out as I expected, but it does convey that there was something missing for him on his travels. And I think that was Penelope. I'm glad about that.
It's something he finds in Pen. But he didn't cut his hand on a letter opener, and he didn't burn his hand on a candle. Someone said the other day, because everyone kind of thought it was a candle, and someone's like, why would he have a candle on during the day? And I thought, good point. But it was the snuffer that they knocked off, which I think has interesting symbolism. That smashed, and he cut his hand on that. And there was blood, after all. Blood watch, stand down. We have our answers.
Is it a snuffer? It was like the glass case that surrounds the candle. And I feel like it's almost significant because that might be what causes that candle to go out so quickly later on.
But it's like once that's broken, that containment has broken for him. So it's kind of all out.
Yeah, exactly. So in episode 4, it kind of hastens the flame going out, which, spurs him into action.
And then, of course, she tends to him very, very lovingly. I love the moment where she sort of folds his fingers over. Very sweet. And she talks about his writing. And he doesn't snap like he does in the books, which is very nice. But she instantly, and the thing is, like, she's not like, oh my God, I can't believe you're writing about other girls. She just instantly is like, your writing is beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it does go into Osterley. So it is kind of like what we speculated in the books, where they have this moment and then they go into Smythe Smith Musicale, which I feel is very Osterley.
Right.
And then, of course, she runs into Eloise in the Bridgerton house, as she was trying to avoid. And this is then continued when we go to Osterley. So Colin and Elle are in the carriage, and Eloise says, I don't wish for her to be friendless. You might be all she has now. But she's like, just perhaps don't bring her to my face all the time. And in the carriage, she says, how is she? And she just wants to know that she isn't suffering, which is, and again, a really beautiful characterization of their story. It's like the true heartbreak of the season. And then that's when Colin said, that's why we're not telling anyone. I was like, you're fucking doomed. Fucking doomed. You've said it now. But I still wasn't prepared for what went down at Osterley.
Same, yeah.
It was weird seeing it in real life, though, because we've stared and stared at those leaks.
Oh, yeah. Osterley was bizarre. Seeing, like actually going up the steps with them and seeing
I was like,
the
really?
inside.
I thought this was going to be like my favourite ball because of all the Polin moments. And it was in some ways, but oh my God, it turned in such a dark way.
I know.
But before we got there, we had some really, really lovely moments. I think this is where we continue to fall in love with Finch, our hero of the season.
Yes.
100%.
Finch also remarks that Portia is terrifying to Penelope, and it just reminded me that how Colin eventually has to stand up to her and how he may be like the only Featherington in-law who would be able to do it.
Yeah, who's going to be able to do it. I absolutely love Finch, how supportive he is of Pen. But when we're at Osterley, Pen and Colin meet up and she touches again on writer Colin and she's like, I want to read more. And they strike up a deal, which I don't think he follows through with. But I think it's interesting that he doesn't stay angry about the writing, which is something we see as a constant theme, is that he doesn't hold grudges. Does send her over to Lord Basilio.
Lord Basilio.
Excellent scene with the dead horse. There's a lot of dead animals in this season, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah. And then Colin comes over and he makes the quip, we shall gallop along. I love it. I love his dad jokes. I love that she loves his dad jokes. This is what I wanted all along, is them making these stupid little quips to each other and just being, gossiping on the side of the ballroom and laughing. Perfect Polin moment.
Because that's his true humour. But I think something like that, which we see in episode 4, he makes it's like a joke, but like a very cutting remark to the Lord Squad, and they just don't get it. And it was really awkward for him, but he just knows that that's the safe space that he has with her.
Yeah.
And then we were watching it together and we all fully bought into the fact that it was Cressida.
I thought for sure it was going to be her, and it was such growth for her character to not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very surprising.
So we were like, oh my God, Eloise, how do you... And then obviously it turned out that it wasn't her at all. Cressida constantly surprised me during the whole season.
Yeah.
Like that scene later when Eloise is like, how dare you do that to Pen? And she turns and she goes, no.
Yeah.
And you can't deny it. It's so true. Maybe you should fucking learn to keep your voice down for a start.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, do you know who else I loved? Lord Remington.
Me too. I love him. What a sweet moment.
What a character.
What a lovely little conversation for Penelope to have. Hearing somebody appreciate Lady Whistledown.
It was so light and sweet.
Oh my God, I absolutely loved that conversation.
Yeah, that was cute.
And they were busy gossiping away. It was so genuine and sweet. And I cannot cope with the fact that, bear in mind, this was the first successful conversation she'd had with just a very nice guy. They were just having a chat, obviously having a few barbs, which doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop activated crazy Colin. And the fact that he is instantly so unable to cope that we had to have Joe Jonas immediately stepping in to sing Jealous. The first fucking scene.
It was great.
Oh, bless him.
It was great to see that character as well. Like, representation was great to see.
The beauty about this show is that it can do more.
Yeah.
And it can lead the way for representation of all kinds.
Yeah.
The Stowells involved in the season as well. It's just so lovely to see. But yeah, absolutely loved his character. I'm like, Pen, this guy, if you don't marry him, have him as your mate.
Yeah, he was great. I loved him.
But then the absolute horror of how wrong Osterley went.
Yeah.
I'm personally still scarred because I was like so invested in it being really sweet.
Yeah.
And I think we knew that she was going to write about him afterwards.
Yeah, but I thought it was going to be as an element of protecting herself.
Her putting the distance.
Yeah, I didn't realize that she'd be forced into it because people were gossiping about her at the ball. Oh my God.
It was awful.
Yeah, I thought everyone would know and it would be like, oh, silly Colin. But no, it was a scandal. I was like, oh, okay.
It just turned. The way it was filmed as well, when the camera just sort of like turned on it.
The canted angles, yeah.
Yeah. And we've got that again in the episode 5, it looks like.
It was so sickening. Beautifully done.
Yeah, and then you hear her heartbeat, the sounds of her heartbeat as she realizes what's happened. Ugh.
Oh, I loved the use of heartbeats.
And as she becomes the centre of the gossip, which is an important lesson for her to learn. I think we were like episode 2 scandal territory straight away. It is moving fast. But I love the way that it's once again one of those things where it's like, Colin, are we thinking? Probably not. He ran after her. He spends half this bloody season running after her, completely uncaring about what people see.
Yeah.
But he ran after her, and then he had that confrontation with Eloise. And I did feel bad for Elle because obviously she hadn't intended to do that, but she'd fucked up. But also she is ultimately still holding the big secret.
Yeah.
And Colin's like, how could you do this to her? What could she have possibly done to have deserved this? And I think in that moment he doesn't know if it's intentional or not. And then Elle is so wounded, but feels so sick about what she's done. But yeah, our girl's ruined by Colin, episode 2. What a fucking surprise.
We were right about Pen writing about her relationship with Colin after Australia. I didn't realize it was going to be this set of circumstances that would push her into it, though. But just as an aside, on the way home, you see the full moon framed through the window of her carriage. And it just reminded me of the scene earlier this episode where they're kind of revisiting the race for the air subplot. And it's so funny that the Finches don't know what they're doing. But I think that Penelope will end up pregnant as well, since her 2 sisters do in these 4 episodes. And earlier this episode, Portia tells her daughters to hurry things along because there is a full moon, a harbinger of fertility. And then we have this shot of the full moon framed through the window of her carriage. Yeah. They didn't have to show the full moon there. I feel like that might be foreshadowing.
Is it foreshadowing a baby or a butt?
Maybe both.
The past 2 days, I've just been walking around the house going, inserts himself? Inserts himself where?
Oh, yeah.
Inserts himself?
My favourite moment is where Portia turns around and she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Why is this my life?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's Portia, I spiritually get you there, girl.
Yeah.
There is another moment of foreshadowing that will come to in episode 3. I have so many mixed emotions about the air plot. I still have always wanted it to be like a cop-out where we think Pen's in the running and then someone else has the son and then Pen and Colin are like, great, we don't have to worry about this, we can go have our lives. But I'm sure Prudence and Philip will both have girls.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And there won't be a rush for Pen to like have a kid immediately. Like, you know, she won't be pregnant by the end of the season, but I think she will have the first son.
I think it's possible she could be pregnant by the end of the season.
Oh, they're so young. I want them to go live, you know?
But if she isn't, I think we will see Prudence and Philippa giving birth to girls.
Yeah.
And Colin now, I want the fucking epilogue to be them on honeymoon and Pen's reading her letters like, oh, they both had girls. Oh, lovely. Should we go outside and travel now? And that can be like the resolution. Like, we know what's going on. But I just want them to live.
Yeah.
We're not even fucking there yet. Jesus Christ.
Let them live their lives. No, Biscuit.
Not with that fucking Bridgerton potency, though. And poor Pen, as she's sadly gazing out of her window, note that in mind, the Whistledown gets flown around town, and what has she written about herself? We know there is one young lady who most certainly wishes her plans had remained in the dark. Penelope Featherington, who was so certain she would not find a husband on her own that she had to enlist the help of Mr. Colin Bridgerton. That's actually the bit of the Whistledown that we saw in the promo that we were trying to decipher with magnifying glasses. And then it continues, and while we knew Miss Featherington's marital prospects were slim at best, this recent scandal will certainly make any further hopes disappear, reflecting how her own hopes are completely crushed. And then again, playing with that theme of like light and dark.
Yep.
So the whole season has these themes of her stepping into the light out of the dark. And she tried to at the full moon ball, no less. And it completely backfired. And now she's shrinking back into the shadows, literally at her window. But also, and maybe that's what the full moon illusion was in the carriage as well, is she was completely exposed and humiliated, and now she's retreating back.
Yeah.
But also, who's there with his addition to Whistledown? But Colin, who's also looking out of his own window across the street at her house. Gorgeous parallels. But this is only going to make him more pissed off with Whistledown. So Pen, darling, you're really digging your own grave. Window Pen, as beautiful as ever. Oh, how soul-destroying was it?
Yeah, this was not what we thought Window Pen would be.
What do you think of Portia in this scene? Because she was interesting because it was kind of harsh, but then there was a moment at the end where
she hesitates.
She could see Pen was hurting, and she was chastising her, being like, I thought you were just playing like silly dress up. I didn't actually think you were serious about your prospects. And then at the end, she, like you say, Lecky, she hesitates and she's like, I don't know how to comfort you.
Yeah.
I know you're struggling, but I don't know how to reach you emotionally.
Right.
Yeah. She ends up leaving because she's not comfortable filling that role with Penelope, just comforting her and coming down to her level and like meeting her on an emotional level. But there is that moment where she kind of hesitates where you see that maybe she wants to say something else beyond, you know, just chastising her, but ultimately doesn't.
She just spent all night, because we had wondered if Window Pen was a ball dress. We wondered if she'd skipped a ball or something. So she's withdrawn from society and she just sat there all day and all night, just staring out at that window. She's looking out across the street. And then Ray comes up. MVP Ray. Big fan.
Accepts bribes. Great for Polin.
Yeah. Get your bag, girl.
I hope she extorted the shit out of him. I absolutely do.
Lines her pockets the rest of the season.
Pen should just tell her everything about the carriage and everything, and she's just like, right, I've priced it out for you here, Colin. If you want me to say that you kissed in the carriage but nothing else, that will be £20. If you want me to.
Obviously, because it's the Featherington carriage. We'll get on this, but it's the Featherington carriage that's been ruined. So it's Featherington that's going to have to clean that up.
They also make it very clear that the footmen can hear her from the inside.
They definitely can hear her. Fucking hell. We'll get to the carriage. We're still reeling, absolutely. Because I bet Ray has undying loyalty towards Pen and would do anything for her. But it's like, if you can make some money out of this, you know, it's a difficult world. We're in a cost of living crisis, and I can't imagine it was easier for a maid in 1815. But she leads her down to the garden. Guys, you know what it is, the first kiss scene. Oh my fuck it. We had to stop. After every episode that we finished, we had to like stop, and because it's like we'd run a race. Yeah. We were just like heavy breathing.
Hyperventilating.
I just want to thank you, Obs, for letting me, because I don't know what it was about it, because I wasn't sad, but and maybe we'll put in the clip, because it is quite funny. I fully sobbed for about an hour. Hi, everybody. It's Veg here. I just finished episode 2. This one, Obs thought it would be funny to record myself because I'm sobbing. I just was sobbing, and I rang up Obs.
Yeah, she couldn't stop crying.
I was like, please, someone let me talk to you. And I just sobbed on the phone for a bit.
And I'm really bad when people are having any kind of emotion. And so it was on a break when we were waiting for Beans to get back from the airport. And I was like, yes, I will speak to you, but I'm also busy. So I'll be doing something else. But it was I was like, you can cry. I'm just going to be putting the washing on, but you cry away. Don't expect me to pat you on the back. And you were just like, I just can't stop crying. And I was like, I don't have good bedside manner at all.
Yeah, well, it was nice to just have an outlet for it.
Yeah, I was like, you keep crying, babe. I'm going to get shit done.
How good was that kiss? Oh my God.
Yeah, we had known about this because it'd been spoilt by quite a few cast members at this point, but she did ask for the kiss. I think it was very, very similar to the book in terms of it had direct quotes, chunky direct quotes, but the way it was said was so different.
Right.
In the book, she's kind of indignant, she's quite matter of fact.
Yeah.
But she is so broken at this point because of the scandal.
Yeah.
And she really thinks that that's it for her, that it's over. Ugh. So how do we think about her asking? Because it's always been a controversial topic. Do you think it worked?
I'm fine with it.
I was fine with it in practice.
Yeah.
I think she completely had lost hope by that point, and even just the conversation she had with her mother before, like pointing out, you shouldn't have even done this. Like, you never had a chance anyway, basically. Yeah, she's just completely lost.
Yeah, and that's it for the rest of your life.
Did Portia say during that like little thing, she's like, I'd always expected you and I to be together? Was that moment, or was that earlier?
That was earlier.
But it's still in her mind by the time.
Yeah, just interacting with her mother could maybe make her revisit that future awaits her, And then I just adore how the Lady Whistledown voiceover starts, and how Lady Whistledown explains that when one loses hope, they can be reckless, just as Pen recklessly asks Colin for a kiss. So good.
Because it is all set up with the scandal. I'm not surprised in the way that they were being so reckless and so obvious. No. But I was surprised at how it became a scandal in like episode 2.
Yeah.
But it's the nature of it. And you know what? It actually has like a bit of Berkeley Square first kiss from the books, where she's like, if people saw us, they wouldn't think this was actually real. Right. They'd think that you were pitying me, or that you'd broken it off, or that it would be a joke to them because I'm a joke. And I think that's the moment that she sort of has as well, is their scandal isn't, oh my God, they're going to have to get married. It's how pitiable that you've had to use someone's kindness. And it's just an interesting way to phrase it. We'll come to it in episode 4 that the Tom do know that Pen and Colin are good friends. Isn't that interesting? Or at least Cressida knows. It's just so sad. And I think what's really interesting about the season is that you really have lost the way that Pen used to look at him. Do you know, like she used to look at him with like the stars in her eyes and like gazing up at him constantly. Because they're now on an even playing field, and because she's come to terms with the fact that they're just friends now, is something that I don't think we get back until the carriage, when she's gazing at him so beautifully. But the first kiss, 10 out of 10. Thoughts?
I just love the quotes they pulled from the book that, you'd already be dead, when she says that she could die tomorrow.
I loved it.
It's this sweet moment where he's trying to be humorous, but he's also just like, obviously, so...
It's like desperately sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way he said it was cute, where he kind of laughs. Personally, for me, what got me was, it was like a double kiss, right? They pecked and then they went in deeper.
That's also from the book.
Yeah, when they finished, Colin leaned in and was like touching her forehead, basically.
Yeah.
Something that's in the book is Colin says after that he's devastated, and you can see it in his face, just this like complete shift of the unknown, of being completely devastated at what happened, and also being highly confused about what was going on as well.
Everything.
His facial expressions were perfect.
Yeah.
You could tell that he's just, he's a lost man after that point.
Because it was such a moment of revelation for him. And it's like something that made sense for him, right? Finally. He maybe hadn't fully comprehended, but like he said, he still felt distant from every sexual experience he'd had before. And this is the moment where he felt connected.
Yeah.
And then for her to thank him and to flee, it was, it just completely threw him off again. But it was beautiful. It was so sad, so perfect, so beautifully done. Well, just a note though, when she was talking about Whistledown, she said it would have been suspicious if she had not written.
Yeah.
I also caught that.
Pen, babe.
She slipped up there. She's lucky she was talking to Colin and not someone smart.
It's like, are you listening? But she did that in season 2 a little bit as well. But I think she was just, she was so broken and the guard was so down here.
That he's a clever person. He might pick that up.
He's going to remember it.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to put it together. I think he's going to be surprised when he finds out it's her. But I think what's going to happen is he's going to look back and he's going to be like, oh, it was always fucking obvious, wasn't it?
He did sort of go, huh? You could see in his face a bit, but
it felt very deliberate to include that though.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
But absolutely gorgeous. Started out with a kiss and a man's life was ruined. And you know what? We fully loved to see it. But then we go episode 3, Forces of Nature. And we start off fucking strong. We start off with the dream. Woo! Absolutely, yes.
This may be one of my... Well, okay, you know what? I love all their kisses, but this kiss is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like the way he puts his hand behind her head and just like kind of pushes her into the wall. Oh my God, what a kiss.
Yeah.
And that's him, right? That's completely his imagination.
And I love that in his imagination, Penelope is telling him that she is consumed by thoughts about him, that she can't stop thinking about him in his mind.
Yeah, it's the notion of reciprocity for him, that it comes up again and again. It's not really him being like, do I love you? It's like, do you feel the same? Are you as consumed by what happened as I am? Because I'm fundamentally changed.
It's amazing. And we were talking about how insular the book is as well. Yeah. And how we were like, how are we going to get all those thoughts out?
How can externalize it?
You know, he'll show it in his face, but he needs to sort of tell someone. And we thought maybe Benedict, maybe someone else. Yeah. No, he literally told Pen in his dream.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Good way to do it.
What I also love is that he was dreaming of her waiting for him. Yeah. And meeting him there. And I'm like, boy, if only you fucking knew. She has been waiting for you this whole time. But this is pure book culling. Like you say, Veg, it's such a beautiful way to portray that internal struggle he has, where his life is fundamentally transformed, ruined, completely taken apart and rebuilt by that one kiss, that one moment for him. Because that is what's missing, isn't it? They have this gorgeously deep bond, which I think was so beautifully explored. What I love is we've had 2 seasons of seeing them together as friends, but the depth of their bond was really put on full display. Yeah. But that inciting sort of 2 lovers moment that you need. And then, of course, the payoff of the wildest fantasies, the dreaming, all of the language that we've been waiting for 2 seasons culminates in this for him. I'm still hoping it has its final payoff during the book when he says, all of that doesn't hold a candle to my real dream of being with you. Yeah. I still hope that's what it ultimately comes to, but gorgeous. And what he says, I've not been able to sleep, not been able to eat, I can barely speak these days. I love that that's his like big 3. It's like, I can't sleep. Even though I'm saying this to you in a dream when I am asleep. He's like, I can't eat. That's like the second thing. He's me, you know, sleeping, eating, speaking. That's all you need in life. And if you've listened to our season 2 rewatch, you'll know that Luke went out of his way in season 2 to incorporate moments where Colin was constantly eating or his plate was really full, because he knew that was like a big personality trait of his character. But he recently said that in season 3 he made sure that Colin barely ate to show how upset he was.
He eats in the balloon scene.
Oh, that he did, Veg, and we will come back to that moment in a bit. But to return back to the dream, he continues, my entire thoughts consumed by our kiss, by you. And like you say, like his dream is that she says, I feel the same. Yeah. Which comes back later when he's wondering about reciprocated love. And that's his big concern. Is it reciprocated? Gorgeous, beautiful, 10 out of 10, stunning. And as he's with her, she says his name over and over again. And this is what sort of breaks through and transcends from sleeping to waking. And he obviously startled out of bed, as we saw in the trailer. This boy Poor kid. And he goes down to breakfast. So he comes down super late, is very frazzled. I love the comedy beat that they had with this, where he was like so like edgy and off guard.
Oh yeah, I laughed out loud. Yeah.
He's trying to act normal.
Just a quick side note, how hilarious is it that Gregory injures his arm by falling off the roof to look at the balloon, not actually in the balloon or falling from the balloon off the roof? Would not have been on my bingo card.
Why?
And the way they just said it so casually made me laugh, because they're like, oh, you fell off the... Like, they don't have a small one-story house. He fell at least 2 fucking stories.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
How is he not more injured?
Where is this balloon? How close are they to the balloon?
I don't know.
Maybe he was somewhere else and it was like behind a fence and he climbed the fence.
I'm just like, did Will Tilston just break his arm like Claudia did?
But if he did, that should have happened during the balloon sequence. It is funny, unexpected, but I'm surprised that he wasn't injured by the balloon.
Yeah. We'll get to the bloody balloon.
And we do have a little Prophet Hyacinth moment at breakfast.
Lucky. You're our prophet in this moment.
She commends Colin for helping Pen, and he's completely flustered by the idea of his and Penelope's friendship. She says, I think Penelope is quite fortunate to have you as a friend, and he just completely loses his mind. He's like, oh, a friend, of course, an acquaintance of the family.
Yeah, the entire family. Good friend. Acquaintance, sorry. Prophet Hyacinth, she never fails to deliver, does she?
Her laughter at him when he completely fumbles his answer, kind of hinting that she realizes there's a deeper meaning to that. Great.
I think this is one thing that I hope we're going to see more of in part 2 when Cantony return. I really want more of the family moments because I love those so much. So I'd love to spend like more time in the drawing room, these jabby, bantery scenes between the family. I think once Cantony back, we can have more of it.
Yeah.
And I also love that Colin mentions Whistledown, and that's what prompts Elle to go and see Pen. And that as she leaves the room, he sort of looks and like makes towards her because he feels bad that he had a go at Osterley, even though he was kind of within his right to. He still feels really bad about it. And I think it's such an interesting thing how he isn't good at holding grudges, and he isn't interested in keeping people suffering when they've done something wrong. He tries to make amends, which I think could be interesting when it comes back later, because he has the burst of anger and then he makes amends. But yeah, Elle goes straight over to the Featheringtons, and poor Pen in this whole scene, she just looks so drained. We hear that she's being caught in scandal for about a week or so. She looks so undone. I love her little panic. I think she has a little panic. Do you know when it's like, miss, you have a caller? I bet she's like, if it's that fucking man, he's going to walk into my house and ask us about the fucking kiss. But it's Elle, and she like can't believe that Elle's there, and it just kind of falls apart because Elle still has that empathy for Pen. And she doesn't want her to suffer. And it'd be easy for her to be like, haha, now you know what it's like to suffer at Whistledown's hand. Haven't we learnt a lesson? But she doesn't like that Pen has been so harsh against herself and that she's turned it against herself. And then she confesses that it was her that let out the rumour, but it wasn't on purpose.
I loved Nicola's performance in this scene. It's so heartbreaking when Elle remarks that she's on her way to visit another friend and that's why she can't stay.
Oh, I'm meeting a friend.
And Penelope's face, she just like completely crumples, but she accepts that they will never be friends again, that Elle has another person that she would call a friend, but she is not a friend anymore. Just so heartbreaking.
And her enemy as well, someone who's caused her so much pain. It's that thing, isn't it? It's like a breakup, because a friend breakup can be just as awful as an actual breakup. Yeah. Do you know when you break up with someone and you're like, I have to accept that your life used to be my business and used to be my shared world, and now I'm not entitled to your world and I'm not entitled to your life anymore. And sorry, Veg.
No comment.
And it's that acceptance that you have to have, isn't it? It's like our worlds are apart now. And what I just also really like is Pen says, would you like to come in? And Eloise rejects her. But later, Colin asks in the carriage, he says, let me in. And I just love the parallel of Pen saying, like, please come in, and Eloise refusing to meet her there, and Colin asking to be allowed into her world. And I really think the way that Eloise is with Pen really shapes how giving she is to Colin and not holding something against him. Because not only would it be incredibly fucking lonely if she didn't have him, she knows what it's like to have someone just not let you in and to shut you out. And I don't think she wants to do that to him. And it is, again, that difference in how ultimately I think he's going to react, where he's going to have a really bad reaction, but I think he's still going to be pulled towards her and he's still going to be a part of her world and he wants to share her world, even though he's angry later on when we eventually get to when she eventually gets around to fucking mention it, be like, oh, did have something to tell you, babe. But now we go into a fan favourite scene, the little willow tree. Guys, how do you feel about the willow tree?
Love a bit of willow tree, loved it. It was such a cute little exchange. There's the rom-com.
It was cute. Yeah.
I love how Newt's does that thing where he's like smiling with his teeth, but also just completely distraught.
Yeah.
Oh, so funny.
Everything's fine. I'm fine. So Promo Pen goes out with Ray, and it's like her first foray back into society post-scandal. She's in public. And immediately, once again, they've just got out the scandal. He immediately fucking follows her into... I think he thinks the willow tree like makes them completely invisible to all humans.
Yeah.
Oh, the magic willow tree.
There's Ray just standing on the outside.
Yeah, but she's standing guard. I'm like, Ray.
MVP.
Once again, not getting paid enough for any of this.
Yeah, I love him following her this season.
Yeah, he just trots after her like doop, doop, doop.
There's this edit on TikTok that to the song like "Walk 'Em Like a Dog," and it's just like all the clips of him following her, being like "Walk 'em like a dog."
Because he doesn't care what people think, and he does it from Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton.
No.
So you can't even be like, oh, it's just like a post-kiss thing. He just doesn't care. But I don't know how no one noticed them going into this invisible willow tree, but I bet he was like just dying to be like, that kiss that we had, blah, blah, blah. And then from her perspective is this mortifying moment that she's like, let's pretend that never even happened, let's just move on by. Whereas it's changed his entire world and he cannot function around her anymore.
Yeah.
But Pen has other things on her mind.
Yeah, I also love how at the end of this conversation, she tells him that if she finds a husband, it'll be thanks to him. And then several characters go on to say this exact same
I know.
thing to Cullen, and he is dying inside every single time, and Luke plays it so well.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Thanks to you. Good job. And he's like, it's just so awkward but sweet, and it's this back and forth that's really playful. And like you say, he just cannot function. Post-kiss, he doesn't know how to handle himself or hold himself around her, which is so funny because kudos to Pen now, because all of those years of composure, when she managed to speak to him, no matter how much she felt, she kind of kept her shit together, and he has one little kiss and he's fucking gone.
Yeah.
But Pen calls off the lessons. Lecky, you thought this was going to happen, didn't you? You thought it was a doomed plan and she was going to call it off. But it was called off in a very playful way, in a light way. And I love how he just keeps bringing it up. He's like, yeah, cool. How you do? Also, just about those lessons. Yeah, cool. Also, we had just to check. Can I just double check on the lessons? Can we just circle back to that? Are we sure that we can't just have
Prospects are important.
and he's like, he's malfunctioning when A, she says the kiss won't happen again. Bleep, bloop, bloop. B, she says they should keep their distance. Double bleep, bleep, bloop. Bearing in mind, this is a boy who wrote in his journals that he feels emotionally distant from people, and he's just found the person he feels connected with.
to. Yeah.
And she's like, 6 feet away from me, thank you. On the other side of the willow tree, if you will. And he's like, no. And then C thanks him for his kindness. And like you said, Lecky, if I get married, it's all because of you. And then she fucking skedaddles. But it's a really interesting scene because it feels kind of, I love how they're like tucked away from the rest of the world.
Since the show came out, Luke and Nicola, they did an interview where they revealed that they came back and did several reshoots after Luke's play because Jess Brownell noticed that Luke had some comedy chops, so they wanted to give him a few more comedy scenes. Aww. And I think this was one of them because if you'll notice, Luke's hair is shorter, and so I think that's why it's styled differently in this scene. They couldn't make it as curly and wavy as it was in the other scenes.
And actually, since we heard that in that interview, we went back and tried to figure out what else had been either reshot altogether and replaced or added in after the fact. And you can see these moments throughout the season where you're like, oh, that was added in. So the presentation in 301 when he winks at those women, that was added in later. There's like a little moment during the Livingston Garden party when he's flirting with all the women. One of those were added later. And then the market scene in 302, it looks as if the original, the one where we had the still from the market at Tudum, it looks like that scene was replaced altogether by the eventual market scene that we got where they were talking about their first meeting. So keep your eyes peeled. There's loads scattered out. Veg, we saw the play, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I totally see his character from the play in this moment. Like the form of comedy is 101 exactly inspired by that performance. But then we went to the Stole soiree, which is the beginning of Krebling. Yeah. Good old Cressida Debling. A pairing that should have really worked out. I was fully aboard the Krebling. And every time Pen was getting involved, I was like, girl, no, stop it. You're bringing more harm on yourself.
Yeah, I think that Debling would have been happy married to Cressida, partly because he was just looking for a practical marriage. But you could see why he was an appealing match for Cressida. She wanted to escape her family. And then also she found this moment of connection with him when she realizes he also hates his family. It would have been a good match for Cressida, and I think it would have been a good match for Debling. So
Pen, you fucked that one up, didn't you, babe?
Yeah.
Oh, and shout out to his vegetables. She's just gone to make some toast, actually, letting the catch and toast go round. But a little shout out for our veg there.
Plate of vegetables.
And then Colin walks in with like a yellow and blue vested walking pen detector. He spots it instantly. I love that any time anyone mentions pen in the season, he turns his head so fast it like gives himself whiplash. He's like, pen. And he does that when Elle mentions that she went to see her. It's like in the book when Penelope and Eloise, after the Polin kiss, Eloise is like, oh, Colin came to see me the other day. Oh, and Pen's like, what the fuck did he say?
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, nothing, it's fine. She's like, oh, no, it's okay, you know.
Then we get a little glimpse of Penelope.
Oh, Lecky.
Approaching
I'm not
some lords.
Not some lords, Lecky.
Including Lord Wilding. How far the mighty have fallen is what I wrote in my notes. Him laughing at Penelope is so much worse than even the trailer made it out to be.
Cruel.
Yeah, he's a cruel, cruel man. Joe Barnes, I love you. Lord Wilding, not so much.
Joe Barnes, excellent portrayal. Lord Wilding, you're on the list. Fife is off the list. He gets a free pass in life, but yeah. Wilding. And it sends Pen straight back to the wall, doesn't it? Where she's found by Debling. And I think it's interesting, right? Because I think the thing with Debling is fundamentally he doesn't really get her, because I think he appreciates her as the wallflower, but Pen doesn't want to be a wallflower. And this is what she ends up telling him.
Yeah, she admits in episode 3, that she likes gossip. She likes society.
She's condemned to the wall, but she doesn't want to be on the wall. I have to laugh the delivery of he's dead. Everything.
Yeah.
Again, so many dead fucking animals. But you can't deny that he does have this rapport with her.
Yeah.
That it's similar to with Cressida. He does have a natural rapport where even though they're mismatched and at first they, during the episode they go up and down with their connection because she's putting on a front. Does that remind you of someone? They do have rapport. And Beans, my darling Prophet Beans, you fucking called it, didn't you? Because what moment do we get as Debling and Pen are having a little bond?
Not only was he shaking his head, he kept looking over at her the entire time. And the Mondrich remarked like, oh, looks like Pen's gonna find, your pupil's gonna find a husband, all thanks to you.
Another one of those moments that make him want to die inside. He can add it to the collection.
Digging in the dagger a little bit.
He can't handle it, yeah. You
can see him shake his head and even turn a little to maybe start walking over there, but he doesn't.
And he doesn't know he's doing it. Does he?
Yeah, completely subconscious. Amazing acting from Luke there.
I know. It's so funny, too, that some of the comments I saw on social media were like, every time he looks at her, you can see his eyes welling up with tears, and we're like, every time.
Apologies for the imminent fly past on Beans' audio.
I love that other people are recognizing sort of the subtleties in Luke Newton's acting and how Colin is so unlike his brothers in the fact that he internalizes everything. He reacts with his face, and I think we kind of go back to that a little bit in episode 4, which we'll talk about when he's talking to Violet. But it's nice to see people recognizing that, how he's acting outwards, this big confidence thing and projection is purely because of him wanting to be more like his brothers and realizing that's what people like. Whereas, inwardly, he's much more introverted than he would like to let on.
And you can see him struggle with this facade. So it's not just flat facade. And these moments where it's that internal struggle that he just beautifully shows. And I'm not being funny, but to his knowledge, because he didn't see her at the Four Seasons ball, she's had one vaguely nice conversation with Lord Debling. And just like Lord Remington, he's like, he can't handle it.
Right.
It's just so fundamentally wrong for him to see her having those quippy moments with someone else. But we're going to head off to the Innovation Fair. Oh, mixed emotion. How are we feeling about the Innovation Fair?
Interesting. Everything happened so fast.
It was quick, wasn't it? I thought we were going to spend we did spend a long time there, but not in really the way I thought we were.
Yeah.
I have a lot of comments about this sequence.
So you guys were talking earlier about the full moon being a bit of foreshadowing for the Polin inheritance plot. I am insane. But if you watch when Pen, Colin and the Featheringtons arrive, there is a ginger male child at the front of the shot. I'm telling you, it's perfectly framed.
I do remember you saying that in the chat and I was like, oh, okay.
I think it's just a redhead, there's one there.
Yeah.
Recognizing redhead sensor.
We're not, a populous group. We have to look out for one another. But the tent scene, Lord, he once again just follows her straight in and he's like, oh, we're going to go kiss again. And she's like, I've got this. I met this great guy. He's so lovely. It's going so well.
The way his jaw clenches when she admits that Debling is not unpleasant to look at. Oh, God, so good.
Well, do you hear his little, And he's like, yeah, it looked that way. It's still a house. staring at you. Yeah, I did fucking notice now you mention it. And also just a complete lack of personal space where he's right up behind her. It's like, babe, just let her breathe. And yeah, whiplash again when he's like, your lessons worked. Which is then he's like, he gets outside, he's like, whips his jacket off, rolls his sleeves. So he's like, I'll give you fucking pleasant to look at, babe. But then they have the cake, full circle 102, 206. Did you see, everyone's pointed out that Colin goes on to eat the same cake when he's watching Penn?
Yes, I did notice that, yeah.
Which is the only, I think this is the only food we see him eat in the entire season. It's like he's trying to taste her. He's like, I'm so dying to kiss you again. I need to taste what you would then taste like.
I do wish we would have spent a little bit more time on that moment. I just wanted
to breathe with the moment.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to see Penelope get lost in that moment as much as he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Pen was going to get lost, but then I suppose she was a bit concerned. It'd been a bit weird if she'd been like, oh, I'm going to get crushed by a basket, but let me check out the view.
That was another one of my comments, is that I felt they should have lingered on that shot between them after the whole balloon debacle where they kind of look at each other. It was kind of a missed opportunity not to show Colin reacting to Penn's proximity to Debbling before he disappears to help Cressida when she feigns her ankle injury. I feel like they maybe should have lingered on that moment just a bit longer.
Yeah.
Before we get to the balloon shenanigans, we have the little Debbling, Cressida, Elle, Penn.
This is painfully awkward.
Horrendous. I was fully shipping Krebbling. I was like, Penn, stop it. Yeah. Pack it in. Although I have to say the grass callback was everything.
Little connection between Colin and Penelope. I have to say Penelope's delivery, Nicola's delivery of one should not overlook the sparrow is so Bridget Jones to me. It sounds like Renee Zellweger delivered that line.
The whole conversation about birds, which is so interesting because did you see that reel where Cressida's costuming is inspired by the idea that she's a bird?
In a gilded cage.
Yeah.
The production designer, she also did a little video about several sets, and they were talking about the Cowper drawing room and how the walls are really tall and imposing because they wanted to give the sense that Cressida is a bird trapped in a gilded cage.
And Cressida and Debbling had this connection over birds.
And it's specifically over a bird that can't fly.
Oh, so interesting.
But we did not expect that your darling Prudank would be the one to set it free.
No.
We're here for it. We didn't expect it.
A little frisky business.
That was completely unexpected. I also have to say that averted death by a balloon basket was also not on my bingo card.
What's that gonna be, death?
Well, mild injury.
That basket was not just like a basket.
Yeah, it was heavy.
I'm not convinced anything would have happened to her.
No, I'm not convinced anything would happen to her. I'm just saying everyone thinks it's like a like one of those weaved baskets. It's not. It's a hard like wooden basket.
Does look heavy.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that someone had been in the basket, in the balloon, rather than Penn needing to outrun the kind of slow moving basket.
Yeah.
I guess she could have kind of been like crushed like the Wicked Witch of the East if it landed on her, if it is really heavy. But I just love how Colin's hero moment revolves around his need to save her. And then there's this really hilarious TikTok from this woman who says that the reason Penelope is in danger is because she was watching Colin.
I think she got distracted looking at Colin for sure.
Haven't we all?
But also, like, it's not fight or flight. She just freezes, you know?
Yeah.
She just froze right then and there. Yeah. And then she just, like, at the last minute was like, okay, I gotta run. I gotta defend myself.
It's just a kind of comical image of the balloon basket, like, drifting toward her.
Yeah.
She stumbles backward. You thought she fell out of the basket into Debling's arms.
I thought she fell out of the basket into the water.
I wanted someone to be airbound. I wanted someone in the sky. I wanted someone falling. Like, that's what I wanted from that scene. I suppose in the end, this is more Emma than Enduring Love by Ian McEwan. But still.
No shade to Nicola, but she apparently had a stunt double for this scene, and she literally just falls back on some pillows. Just say.
Nick was sure it was very, very intimidating and scary to have a very slow-moving basket move towards you.
Hats off, but hats on to Debling's hat. That shit never falters. That's how dangerous this scene was.
Stuck on.
Firmly in place. I also love his animal print cravat. In this sequence.
But Colin, I just want to give the biggest shout out to the fact that the emotional support curl became the heroic support curl.
God, so hot.
My reason for living, that one curl.
Oh my God.
It was like, Penn, you watching? I'm coming out to party.
Yeah.
Incredible character development for the curl. There is an excellent behind the scenes image of the curl.
Yes.
in a clip, which you know, Lecky, is my personal kryptonite, as you'll find out in All Together Now, Block 4,
Part 2.
Coming to a podcast near you. I need Luke Newton either in a pirate movie or a war movie, pronto.
No, I want him to be a detective. I want him to be a fucking detective.
A detective pirate in the Spanish Armada. And he finally gets his hero moment, which is, you know, it's all we could want for him. I still would have liked for him to be in a bit grumpy at seeing Pen with Doubling.
Like I said, I think they should have lingered on that moment a little longer, where Colin and Penelope, their gaze should have been longer. Yeah. And then I think Colin's gaze should have drifted next to Penelope and realized that she was still kind of in close proximity with Deblaine. Instead of immediately having Deblaine escape to help Cressida, they should have just lingered on that shot just a little bit longer to kind of intensify Colin's jealousy a little bit.
And for the hero praise to be a little hollower as a result, so he learns that he doesn't get everything he needs just from being a hero. But speaking of being a hero, we're off to the Innovations Ball, where he's still being accosted by young ladies. In episode 1, episode 2 even, at the market, he always kept flirting with ladies, he kept catching their gazes, but here, he just doesn't care.
He's kind of reluctantly, like, taking part of the conversation.
He's, like, engaging, but he certainly isn't being like, oh my god, if I told you what I'd been up to, I'd have to marry you. He's interesting, but where the fuck is Pen?
Just to revisit the balloon thing, they called her outfit for that the balloon race dress. And I was wondering, is it because she tries to outrun the balloon? Is that why they called it the balloon race?
And this comes up at the Innovations Ball. Do you know that moment where she catches eyes with Cressida? Penelope's legs are never going to be able to catch up with Cressida's race. Like, she was never going to win that race.
She tries.
It's like, do you know in 208 when Colin's like dragging her down the hall and her legs are having to move like 20 to the dozen just to keep up with like one stride?
Well, the best marathoners are the shortest ones.
Interesting.
There you go. Mo Farah.
A brief aside, Polly Walker, when they enter this ball, when the guy offers her the lamp and she's like, no.
Oh, yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Beans, she did you so proud this season.
I've liked the Featheringtons every season, but I love that we're getting so much more with both sisters. I just love the dynamic. It's so funny. And so if this is like the last season that we get to see them, like, I'm so happy that we've gotten to explore just like
their marriages and their competitiveness.
Portia is just so smart and her 2 eldest daughters are so dumb.
She's so exasperated by it.
And Philippa looks so good this season.
Banging. Oh my god.
Kept staring at her.
She's beautiful. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention this during episode 2, but Prudence says she doesn't want to have sex because it flattens her hair. And when they cut to the Finches having sex for the first time, Philippa's not laying down.
She's on top.
Yeah, she's on top.
I wonder if she absorbed the thing about her hair being flattened.
Oh gosh. Back to a future Featherington.
Future Featherington, Colin Featherington.
Yeah, future Featherington, Colin Featherington. You know, he would change his name happily. He'd be like, yeah, totally down for it.
Oh.
He's a modern man.
I reckon if Penn asked him to take her name, he absolutely would, even though that probably wasn't even possible in those days. He'd be like, yes.
I think if they combine their names, it would sound really cool. Featherbridge.
Oh. Featherbridge is cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of being Colin, my wife, Bridgerton, he could be Colin, your husband, Featherington.
Oh, no, he would, wouldn't he? He 100%. But bless him, we're so mean to him. We love you so much. I'm so proud of him this season, is what I'll say. Really proud.
Aww.
And there's a moment here at the Innovations Ball, which is just soul-destroying, because he has this speech with the ladies.
Yes.
Where they're like, where did you get the courage from? And he says, I believe courage is within us all, as long as we are honest with ourselves and about our feelings. And then he fucking looks at her and he goes, it's possible to do anything. And it's like, if you're honest with who you are and how you feel, the entire world opens up. And he fucking looks at her, and what happens? She hears it and she's like, great advice, pal.
Yeah, this is almost kind of like a reversal, I'm sorry, Veg, of Lady Whistledown pushing him into the brothel. Here we have Colin inadvertently pushing Pen toward Deblaine because she's like, I have to give this another shot. It's my really only chance.
Well, Lecky, it reminds me of the What a Barb scene in 104. Do you know when she's like, oh, Marina looks like she could do with a hero, and Colin's like, oh, great idea.
I love the way you said the What a Barb scene like it's the first time you've ever mentioned it. Like it's not the name of our podcast.
Like, have you heard of it? It's this little scene, and I said 104 as well, just in case she was lost. I was like,
You know the one in 104?
it's this funny little scene. And he fucking looks at her though, and she goes off, and that's her heartbeat, right? That we hear there.
Oh, I thought it's his.
I think that we hear her heartbeat in episode 2, and then I think we hear his heartbeat in this scene.
Oh, I thought his heartbeat was at the end of the episode.
No, because I feel like this is the emotion that drives him to have that conversation with Violet, to maybe confess his feelings at this ball.
Maybe it's both of their heartbeats.
Could be both.
It inspires Penelope to go up, and she decides to be honest with Debling. And it's an interesting parallel of, she's like, actually, I haven't been who I truly am. And she confesses, Debling, I was acting out earlier. This isn't me. I'm actually XYZ. This is who I am. No, Colin would be heartbroken to hear that Pen doesn't love grass.
No, she doesn't hate it. She doesn't love it. She doesn't hate it.
Well, she's probably like, well, he's got that covered. I don't have to love grass because he's got that covered for me.
As a former blade of grass, Lecky, you know this hits me particularly hard. And she says, I was pretending to be someone I'm not, and I do not wish to do that anymore. And then Debling says, how many yous are there, and where do you hide them all? Ooh, he sees.
One moment I love from this ball is that Colin did, in fact, remember Violet's advice from season 1. God bless Colin for having absorbed that information and carried that with him to season 3. And I love how immediately he goes on to act on Violet's advice until, Debling interrupts the moment with Penelope, and how closely Vi watches everything that follows between them.
Yeah. So if you're not sure what Lecky is referring to, in 103, there's a conversation in the Bridgerton drawing room where Violet says that the best foundation for love is friendship, and we dragged him. I think we've made TikToks about him being like, oh, imagine if you'd listened to this piece of advice. Colin Christopher Bridgerton, on behalf of everyone here at What a Barb, a Polin podcast, I'd just like to personally extend my apologies for ever doubting your listening abilities. I don't know why it took you fucking 2 years to act on it, but, we forgive, we forget.
He's been busy looking at grass.
He has. We've been busy laughing at him occasionally, so we're sorry. Congratulations. And in that conversation that he initiates, he asks, how did you and father know it was reciprocated?
Yeah.
It's not him figuring out, do I love Pen?
Yeah.
It's, does she fucking love me back?
Oh. So, listeners, I've only watched the season 1 time. I know, shocking. Shocker.
It's a classic Beans thing to do.
Yeah, I told Lecky the other day, I was like, I'm too giddy to watch it again. But there were so many scenes that gave me butterflies, but also made my heart break for both Pen and Colin. And just, this was one of them, because it's like, oh my God, he loves her. But oh my God, he doesn't know she loves him back.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he must be going so crazy, because ever since they kissed, his world has completely changed.
Yeah.
And she's there acting completely nonchalant.
Right.
She's there, like, trying to get with Debling and being so excited about that. And it just must, like, kill you a little bit, because his entire world is altered.
I think because she is resigned to the fact she still believes he's never going to be with her.
Yeah. She's made peace with their relationship that they've got.
Yeah. And so for him, he sees it as like, oh my God, like, she doesn't feel for me the same way that I do. And when really, we've had Pen in that situation for 2 damn seasons,
Yeah.
Like, we've seen her freaking out about not having those feelings reciprocated. And now he's feeling the things that she did, but I feel like in a more intense way.
She had to learn to live with it, because it's just been with her for so very long. It's just a part of who she is, but it consumes him. And he literally can't move past it. And what Violet says is, when Colin's like, how do you know it was reciprocated? It goes back again to almost echoing Colin's own words, actually, about courage.
Yeah.
That it's because he gathered the courage to ask. Colin's like, I've got this sister called Francesca, and I'm totally asking for her, asking for a sibling. Yeah. And then he, like, stares at Pen the whole time, and Violet manages to piece it together. He then compounds this by striding straight over to her too. I assume then, is he going over in the middle of the ballroom to be like, Penelope, do you love me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I 100% think so.
He just goes straight over.
Yeah, and he's like looking at her lips.
Yeah, what the fuck was he going to do?
I think he just was going to kiss her.
I think he wanted to take her outside for a separate conversation, or dance with her and talk to her.
And ask her.
Yeah.
That sounds far too civilized, Beans.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to lift her up, spin her around, kiss her lots.
He's like, church is free on Tuesday the 15th.
Yeah.
Oh, bless his little soul. And he goes straight over, and I think we were all screaming at this point, because we knew exactly what was coming. We saw the dance in trailers, right? And we were like, no.
That tension was really good.
And she goes with Debling. And did you see how the camera it was so like destabilized on him again, just really shaky. You could hear the heartbeat again. And then it focused on Pen taking Debling's hand. And then he had to stand, watch the dance. His little wallflower tendencies popped straight back up. Violet's reaction.
She watches this whole thing from the background.
The whole thing.
Oh my God, she's invested because, like you said, Colin is not subtle. So from their conversation, she's like, oh, I gotta go watch how this plays out.
She's pieced it together.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, bless her. And then I think in an interview, Andrew Arm confirmed that this was Ruth Gemmel's choice, wasn't it? She was like, I need to be there in the obvious moments, but also in the background. If you watch her, she is watching and she's fucking livid.
She's not livid. She's just
invested.
Yeah.
She's livid at fucking Debling. She's like, get the fuck off my daughter-in-law.
I thought she looked concerned.
Yeah. She looks concerned.
I think she's just invested in the outcome of this scenario. She's keeping a close eye on things.
Yeah. Because she just built Colin up to go do this huge moment. And then...
I know. I think for me, she feels more heartbroken and taken back a little bit,
So
you know?
Yeah.
And then happier than ever. There we go. We'll touch on that later. But any other thoughts about episode 3? We all said that this was going to be our favourites, and I will come back to rankings, but interesting episode.
I feel like we're missing a scene where Pen's sisters refuse to take the potion anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Since it's referenced at this ball, when Philippa realized she's pregnant, Portia is like, oh, I thought they stopped taking the potion. I feel like there was maybe another scene where like maybe like they were served it and they're like, oh, we're not taking this anymore, to try to trick audiences into thinking like, oh, that's not going to happen, and then she ends up pregnant anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Can hang out with the ABC hug, the to-done market still, and the 206 scene.
The lessons montage.
They're all there somewhere. But guys, we're going into episode 4, Old Friends. Oh my word. We start with Debling calling on Pen. Which one of you was it where it's like, it's giving tomato plant vibes?
Me! That was me!
So he's wasting no fucking time. Like the whole Debling of it, we might have to talk about Debling another time because it really gets into it, but it goes so fast because, contrary to what we were led to believe, he was never looking for a love match. So he was just like,
I know.
You'll do. Let's go.
Right.
I'll fuck off to the penguins.
Oh, then there's the shot of Portia and the sisters kind of lingering outside the doorway, spying on them. Yeah. And Portia says that many people could do worse than be connected to the Bridgertons, which I feel is like hinting that Portia will be thrilled by the engagement. I mean, maybe not at first, but I think she'll come around and realize what an advantageous match Penelope has made.
But also surprised, giving way to Polin getting angry.
Well, I think she's going to be upset with Colin because she clearly would have seen what happened in episode 4, right? But also, I do think Debling is, like, actually interested in her legitimately. Like, he finds her clever and silly, so...
Yeah, but we see that there's no hope of a romantic connection.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, she'll be a good wife.
She asks him straight on, and he says, probably not. And for Penelope, that's a deal breaker for her. She can't live in a world without love.
Yeah. With or without Colin.
Ultimately.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the window gets dropped in where he asks her about the window and she says, I mostly just enjoy the view, but recently I have grown tired of it.
Yes. So clever how they set up Debling's later revelation in episode 4 with him taking note of Portia's comment about how Pen likes to sit at this window, and then how Cressida inadvertently tips him off that it's because the Bridgertons' home is across the street.
Yeah. I fucking gasped in that dance.
I thought of you in that moment, Lecky. I was like, she will love this.
I love that.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
There's some pretty clever writing.
It was clever.
Yeah.
But we go over to Colin in his study.
Interestingly, several fans have pointed out that you can glimpse some letters in the drawer in Colin's study. So those could perhaps be Penelope's letters to Colin.
Right, I've studied this extensively. I brought out the microscope. You all know that I got Ultra 4K HD NASA space station satellite.
Oh yeah, same. 17.99.
I know it. You got us.
Yeah.
I've studied this, and my conclusions are thus. It says Grosvenor Square, Mayfair, London.
Oh, it does?
I can't see what number Grosvenor Square.
Interesting.
But I don't think it matches her name. I don't think it's long enough to be her name. We'll have to keep looking at this, but it says Grosvenor Square.
Interesting.
Maybe it's just his letters home. Although, why would he have his letters home? I bet his family were like, we don't need this anymore.
Or they're letters he never sent.
Oh, because no one wanted to hear from him.
Yeah.
But he's in a really darkened room. The curtains are drawn. There is a gorgeous mirror shot when Violet walks in. And then Colin leans forward into the light a little bit when Violet asks him how he is, but he's still holding himself back. We're still not quite ready to be brave yet, Colin. We're almost there.
Just purely a speculative question about whether or not I'm in love with my best friend.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was asking for Francesca. Apologies. And then, Beans, this is a random point. I just want you to know that you completely ruined the Lady Whistledown voiceover. you know when she goes, is it our minds or our hearts? I go,
or our diddly parts.
So thank you so much. What was that from? That must have been our trailer episode.
Yeah.
But we are off to the Fuller Library. We've talked extensively about Blue Pen.
Love Blue Pen. But I do have some comments about Cressida. Her hair is filled with bows, and her hair itself is even shaped into bows. They shaped her hair. It's very interesting.
Oh, Cress.
Do you think she's
She mirroring Pen. Wallflower moment.
Oh, Cressida.
been like, how do I get Debling's attention? Fill my hair with loads of fucking bows.
Yeah.
I feel like Cressida's outfits this season, bless her heart, oh my lord. Her parents like gave her the peacock treatment. Like, if we make things bigger and bigger, people will take notice of you on the market.
Giant sleeves, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's getting kind of dire for her. Because this is what she says at the Fuller Library with Eloise, who really doesn't key into how upset Cressida is. She's like, they've decided to marry me off to someone. So it is that kind of thing. It's like, this actually really has huge consequences for me. So I need to draw attention.
Right.
I need to attract this person. And then Pen's there sort of skipping around.
What you said about her maybe channeling Penelope here, it is possible, because then we do see in episode 5 she's wearing that dress that looks very much like Enchanted Pen, which is the dress she wears later this episode. So
on a little journey. And then also for the library, that another stunning mirror shot where, so sad, Colin is framed, you can see him in the mirror with Debling and Pen like doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. And it's like, well done, Colin, you really helped her there.
Aww.
We really went balloon to engagement really fucking quicker than the balloon moved, I tell you now. Because again, he wasn't looking for the love match, was he?
Yeah.
But I love that he was like, so how does it go then? You know, if I was to ask someone. And she looks at Colin and then she gives an ambiguous answer.
Yeah.
And Debling also notices her looking at Colin.
Fucking does, doesn't he? He fucking knows.
Yeah.
If anything, it's embarrassing it took him that long to figure it out.
Colin was not on the subtle train this year. Do you know which train he is on?
Oh, fuck off.
The first train back to the little brothel. How lovely, kids.
Okay, just as a minor criticism, like I mentioned earlier, I think they could have done without this.
Yeah, same.
Chop, chop, chop.
The first makes sense to me in that Lady Whistledown pushes him into it. The second one could have left it out and not have lost anything in terms of the storytelling.
Yeah, they've been like, Colin, do you want to come to the brothel with us? And he said, I think I'll pass this time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, they could have just cut to him, like, you know, despondent at home, laying on his bed. And it kind of conveys the similar emotion that he's lost and Penelope is it for him.
Or even if he's just like at Mondrich's bar or something else and a woman comes up to him and he's like, no thanks.
Or, yeah, the scene with Lord Fife and co, where he snaps at them and the way that they're talking about their entanglements with women.
Right.
This is the thing, isn't it? Because it's like, it almost is two versions of the same conveyed message, which he isn't able to do that anymore. But when he's at the gentleman's club, which I think is more potent because a lot of Colin's struggles has been how he's perceived by his peers. And his peers are his brothers and the gentleman.
And he stands up to them.
So it makes more sense for this message to be conveyed here.
Yeah.
And he snaps at them and he says, it is tiring, is it not? The necessity imposed on us to remain cavalier about the one thing in life that holds genuine meaning. Do you not find it lonely? Connection and love, and prioritising that.
Yep.
And they laugh at him almost. They're like, what are you talking about? And I think that conveys more than we needed from the brothel.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, distressed Colin is everything. Take that, Knightley. When he goes into his room and like throws himself and like splays across the bed.
Yeah.
We always wanted that moment from Emma 2020. Do you know when Knightley has a tantrum and lays on the floor?
Yeah.
10 times better. No offence, Emma 2020, but he is a man completely undone. And then, of course, Debling speaks to Portia, ties that up, and Pen is panicking. And then Portia has that speech where she turns her away from love, where she's like, that's why I didn't want you reading.
I love Portia's speech here about security. Yeah. Such a brilliant character moment for her.
Because that's been Portia's life, hasn't it?
It's her worldview.
Yeah. And it's a worldview that she's earned because she's lived it.
Do you know what is romantic?
Yeah, security.
But also, she hasn't had that security. Like, she probably wants her girls to have that security that she didn't have because her husband was not secure.
And it's very true that it's all right to romanticize something, but in the harsh light of day, like, it isn't romantic to struggle. It isn't romantic to be poor. It isn't romantic to have a life like that.
With Debling, this is also a scenario where Penelope would be even more protected because she says that she would basically be in control of the house and the finances while Debling is gone. Not only does he have this immense wealth, but he's not going to be there. Penelope will be left to manage the finances herself. She won't be in a situation like Portia was in a state where she's constantly worrying about their future future.
Yeah.
But it is hearts, minds,
Diddly parts.
that is it for Pen. And you can see that it isn't even really just that Colin is in her world. It's just fundamentally her, and she's tried to repress it and she's tried to be practical. It's her worldview is that she's a romantic.
Yeah, I don't think she has hope that she will be with Colin at this point when she ends up rejecting Debling. It's just that she can't be in a marriage without love.
Yeah.
And we have a similar scene of parent and child where Violet meets Colin on the stairs. Oh God, we did want a scene like this where he was a little bit stubbly.
I love this stuff.
Completely broken. Yeah.
Violet pushing Colin to act before it's too late is just so perfect. And I love how she remarks that his new armor is not his true self. And then she hints that he may lose his ability to be himself with others, like he is with Penelope, if he doesn't basically act and go after Penelope. And how she talks about his place in the family as well as his sensitivity, kind of giving us this new insight into his character that we didn't really see because we didn't know him before season 1. This was a really great scene.
And once again, throwing it back in his face, like, oh, you know, don't you want to see your work play out?
Yeah, your work.
And I thought it was so interesting because Debling is going to propose to Pen, and he goes, oh, that was fast. Like, he was just so quick about it.
It's like, I like to take my time and take 12 years before I propose to live my life.
Yeah.
It's a really good point both of you just made. Lecky is, and it's very affirming to him because I think he's always struggled to find his place in the family because he's at a very weird point in the family. And she says, no, your strength is that you are this sensitive person.
Yeah.
That you've tried to cheer us up. That isn't you being additional or separate or lacking. Your strength is your sensitivity. Your strength is that you are close with your sisters and that you are sensitive and everything like that.
And that he has this romantic side.
Beans, you also said that she knows exactly how to spark him into action and how to reach him because he likes taking action. He likes doing something.
Yes.
With a different person, that comment could have made them be like, I'm never leaving my room then. She's going to get married to someone else.
Defeated.
But she knows that it'll spark something in him.
It'll spur him. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's a great comparison, actually. At the end of season 2, when Kate was hurt and everything, Anthony stayed away the entire time.
Yeah, it's a good point. He couldn't deal with it.
He didn't go to see her. He didn't do anything because he couldn't deal with it.
He's scared of his emotions.
Yeah. Colin is a man of action in a different way. He acts upon his emotions so much.
Instead of running from them.
Exactly.
To tap into that, during the last scene with Queen Charlotte, she decides to put on this ballet because she thinks it will inspire her lovers into action. She meets Lord Zamadani and Fran, but it ends up kind of inspiring our lovers, Polin, because then we see Penelope watching this ballet, and I think this is the moment where she realizes she can't be in a marriage without love. And this is the moment that sends her into panic before that Debling dance. And I think it just worsens when he essentially confirms that love is not in the cards for them if they marry.
And I remember so vividly rewatching this and we were like, Colin, please. We were like, we're so on your side. And we go to the study and we see that scene from the trailer.
But the candle goes out. Unlike the trailer.
Yeah, that was big.
Which is really interesting to show us that Colin's time is running out. But this makes sense in the show itself because Colin's realization that he's in love actually comes much earlier in the show than it does in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just made good use of the clip.
And so we were just trying to get that boy to that ball with everything we were. We were like, we're with you, Colin. We're here 100%.
Pure chaos.
I just was so proud of him. Do you know when he gets the ball and he's with the Lord squad?
Yeah.
And he just pushes past them.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is him.
And he rejects them. He rejects them when Lord Fife says that they're going to White's and not that terrible Mondridge bar or whatever he says.
It's another thing. He's like, you're also slagging off my mate there.
He's rejecting them.
And it's a funny parallel to 208 when he got into so much trouble because he went along and he was so trying to impress his friends that got him in trouble. And here he physically pushes past them. And poor Pen. I mean, we saw this dance in the promo. We speculated about it a million times. But Debling and Pen are on the dance floor and she's vocalizing the question that she's been wondering the entire day. The question that she's been fighting against the entire day. The practical marriage that Porsche advocates, that the practical damage side of Pen has been trying to go through with.
Yeah.
Versus the fact that she's just a true romantic. Whether Colin's in the picture or not, she is fundamentally a romantic at heart. And she asks him here, do you think it could ever grow? And he's honest with her and says, kind of not really. Maybe, but maybe not. And you can see it just wars against her. And Lecky, like you said earlier, the dance with Eros and Psyche that she'd watched and been so moved by, it's almost like that war is within her, not only just between her and Colin.
Yeah.
But speaking of Colin, Cressida and Eloise are up in the balcony, and Cressida is the one that spots Colin, and he comes into the ballroom, steps on the side by the broken columns and watches, and then moves to interrupt the fucking dance. And then, of course, we have the Polin dance, the cut-in. We had so wanted Colin to cut into a dance for such a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I told you this was gonna happen. I told you.
It's classic Chaos Colin though, isn't it? Like, he lived up to Chaos Colin above and beyond.
He lived up to Chaos Colin and a Beans prediction.
All coming true. Have you all seen the behind the scenes?
Yeah.
First of all, Jack Murphy, utter genius. Utter
I love
genius.
Jack Murphy.
Yeah. I do wish we'd seen the moment from the behind the scenes clip where we see basically Colin returning to his manners as Jack Murphy directs him in the behind the scenes clip, but instead we cut away to Devlin and Cressida. I wish we had seen Chaos Colin try to kind of compose himself and kind of become genteel again as they fell into this dance.
And for Penn, Nicola played that as like a very begrudging, like, oh, I do love you, but that was a dick move, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the song being switched? Because they rehearsed to Happier Than Ever, and then in the final, it's Snow on the Beach, and they moved Happier Than Ever to Act 3.
Yeah. I think I would have preferred Happier Than Ever with the two of them, to be honest.
It wasn't like a big dance moment, really. It was more about their words. They weren't doing anything particularly complex in the dance, I didn't feel.
I have to say, I'm okay with the Snow on the Beach because I feel like it has this melancholy romantic tone to it that Happier Than Ever doesn't have.
I've never heard it.
I feel like Happier Than Ever has more of an edge to it, whereas this Snow on the Beach has more of
Y'all know what I think Snow on the Beach sounds like.
It's not quite the same. Like, I would argue that when you listen to it, Snow on the Beach it is very melancholy and despondent, but there's a little bit of hope in there.
Yeah.
That I think Happier Than Ever is condemned and it's doomed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, Snow on the Beach is like about finding love again, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty in it.
And it'd be magical.
Oh.
So it's good that she had that moment with Colin dancing with her.
And I think it's his mindset of like, I can win her, I can do this, I can get her. And what ends up happening is she rejects him on the ballroom. She's pissed off with him. And like we saw, there is another actual cut moment, isn't there, from this moment?
Yeah, you have Colin pushing past Eloise, which we think was in that shot of the script we saw from the the E.T. clip. We think they cut it of him brushing past Eloise as he goes after Penelope.
But during the whole Polin dance, what has Devlin been up to? Well, he's been intercepted by Cressida, who gets him to finish the dance with her, and she has quite a few interesting tidbits to share with him.
And as Devlin and Cressida dance, Devlin watches Penn and Colin. Cressida, noticing, says, they do seem upset, do they not? Eros and Psyche battling it out. It's interesting that Cressida knows exactly what has been going on during the season. She may be one of the only people who does know. We also learn more about the origins of Penelope and Colin's friendship. Never in all our speculating did we think we'd hear about it from Cressida, but we are happy to take it. She says that Penn and Colin are the oldest of friends, really, ever since the Featheringtons moved in across the street. So we have our answers. The Polin friendship is definitely no revelation in the Ton, and probably explains how they've gotten away with everything for so long.
Penelope follows Devlin, and he rejects the fuck out of her. If Penn read Colin for filth in episode 1, Devlin reads Polin for filth in episode 4. He's like, you guys were not fucking subtle.
He's basically saying, I don't want to be cuckolded while I'm away.
Yeah, which fair enough. He's like, if I come back and little Agatha Debling's bobbling around, I'm going to fucking know about it, aren't I?
Oh, shit. Yeah, that was intense.
I mean, ultimately, yes, though, because like 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 30 seconds later, it was kind of harsh, but also you kind of, do you know when someone's really harsh, but then you're like, but fair enough, actually. In all honesty, yes. And he calls it off because he's been paying attention. We saw him catch it a few times, and then obviously Cressida confirmed that Penelope is waiting for someone that fundamentally isn't him.
Yeah.
He has Polin figured completely out, and he asks her about the window, and the way I gasped with this fucking window. And it was still heartbreaking to like see how Penn was trying to scramble to salvage the situation. Not because she wanted to be with him, but I mean, her situation was just so confounding to her.
Yeah.
And he's there asking her, which, you know what, she's never actually admitted how she feels about Colin. Like, even to Marina, she never actually vocalized the words, and she clearly finds it really difficult to do so. And we have that sort of regression to 208 where she's like, the idea that he would want to be with me is laughable. It just isn't even a possibility. And then Devlin just straight calls her out, and he's like, but do you want it to be? And that's her truth. No matter what's happened, she can't deny ultimately that she wants to be with Colin.
Yeah.
And that really she wants a marriage of love, which she's never going to find with Devlin. That gorgeous moment with Portia where she's like, do I only matter to you if I have a Lord's ring? And you can see that linger with Portia. We don't expound on that, but we will. And we can see that's a moment for Portia where she's like, oh, she actually is my child first above a prospect.
Yeah.
But she runs out. Colin follows. He sprints out. We saw it in some of the promo, but seeing it actually, he fucking runs after the carriage the whole way.
Oh my God, how exhilarating.
Amazing.
Oh my God, yeah, he pauses and then they do the close-up on his face and then he takes off after her again. Amazing.
He catches up with the horses.
We were all fully like, Colin, we're behind you. Go get her.
Well, no, because you guys paused, and because I wasn't on the chat, I didn't know that. So I'd got to the end.
Oh yeah, I was like, don't fucking speak, Vetch. I was like, shut up.
Hush up. Hush up.
Yeah. I jumped on and I was going to be like, oh, I can't believe he proposed. And then you guys were like, we're not there. I was like,
We were like so deeply with him at that moment. Once again, I assume everyone saw him running after her for the 15,000th time. But we've criticised Penn a lot about the timeline, and we'll get into the timeline next episode. But in her defence, like, if the ton are talking about them, once he got in that carriage, it was kind of a done deal.
There was no getting away with it, was there? The shot of him climbing into the carriage.
He waited to be let in, which is so different when in the books he was like, get in.
Yeah, asks to be let in.
And she does, and she tries to keep him at that distance.
Yeah. Originally, this scene was supposed to play with Colin and Penelope sitting next to one another, but director Andrew Ahn decided to have Colin sitting opposite Penelope before falling to his knees before her. This created the effect of Colin almost pleading for Penelope, but I also think it shows him trying to reach through to her, following on from what he said when he stopped the carriage. Let me in. At this point, Penelope is still guarded, but Colin, as described by Luke, vulnerably confesses his feelings, not knowing if he will be rejected, but still placing himself before her. Ironically, though, Luke pointed out that this places all the power in the scene with Penelope, a complete flip of the dynamic we have seen in previous seasons, and completely unknown to Penelope herself at the time.
But as we all know, it's his little love confession. Told you he wouldn't say I love you. I fucking told you those words would not come out of that boy's mouth.
Yeah. Hey, Luke Newton, his acting in this scene is so phenomenal. The way his entire face falls when she basically says like, oh, but we're friends. And then when she admits that she wants to be more than friends, his eyes immediately gravitate toward her lips before they kiss. It's so good. It's so good.
The whole confession is the biggest journey because he's like, I need to know. And it's he says it so breathlessly and desperately, like, I need to know, did he propose? Yeah. Did you say yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Did he propose? Yeah.
Oh, you know it's killed me. The line about dreams. When he said that I preferred to be asleep because it's where I might find you. Are you fucking joking me?
Preferring sleep.
Yes.
Are you joking me? And then the way that Luke says, cannot, will not, do not want to. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says, I've been wanting to say this for weeks. And it's that sort of burst. It's not because he was demanding anything of her. He physically couldn't keep it within him anymore. 10 out of fucking 10. Oh my God. And then Penelope goes, so much more. Like, I want to be so much more. And we've talked a lot about the carriage scene and how it's divorced from the whistle down. And I mean, I think what we can say for Pen here is if you said the word whistle down, she wouldn't be able to pick that bitch out of a lineup. She had no comprehension. She was caught up in the moment.
Yeah, literally same though. Like, if you'd asked me who Whistledown was during that scene, but I don't know.
And it's interesting because they've delayed the Whistledown plot until part 2 because we were so convinced like this was going to be the episode where the Queen announced the bounty, but Jess Brownell said they deliberately withheld it because we'd had a lot of that in season 2. But I think it also kind of helps us forget about Whistledown. So we're with Penny where we had the scandal in episode 2, but we've just kind of forgotten that that's a component, and she gets so carried away in this moment.
Yeah, I completely forgot.
And she's not even thinking of it, that we'll talk about it in our next episode, that she's going to get swept away, and I think reality is going to come down really hard hard on her because the whole day she's been completely swept up in marriage and dabbling and everything like that. And here she's finally got the love of her life, the boy she's adored her entire life, on his knees confessing his feelings for her. And I think at that point, she just has completely pushed out the other reality, which is that he not only doesn't know that she's Whistledown, but he hates Whistledown. So that's something that is going to drop very, very quickly on her. But carriage scene.
I love how they adapted some of the book moments into this sequence, that sweet, playful energy between them as they finally kind of come out of the passionate moment and the embrace that they've just had. I love that he's the one who asks if they could have just kept going, because in the book it's Penelope who says that.
The one note from the book that I wasn't happy to like kind of see referenced was when she runs her hand through his hair.
Love it.
Which is a lovely moment.
Oh my god, yeah.
But all I could think of was the book.
The Eloise.
Where she's thinking about Eloise's hair. Really spoiled that moment for me.
It reminded me of that interview Nicola gave where she said she kept asking them if Penelope could run her hands through Colin's hair because she would. She would. She finally gets her moment here.
My heart is pounding just thinking about it. The only scene I've rewatched is the carriage scene because, oh my god, I was so nervous.
She's hyperventilating.
Yeah.
Thinking about it.
I kept thinking she's going to be like, oh, your hair feels just like Eloise.
Pen, don't say it.
I was like, please do not.
Oh, but Colin in that moment looks so touch-starved. And we know he isn't because he's just...
He looks feral.
That face after that.
Yeah.
It's like finding an oasis in the desert, but he's just been to the brothel. And this is the moment it compounds it so much that...
He needed the connection.
Yeah.
It's the connection, right? It isn't just the physicality. And it's only in that moment where he's like, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole scene, the moment of consent between the two of them was so beautifully, beautifully done. Like you say, Lecky, the humour, the passion, it was just... so gorgeous. And when they stop, it, like you say, it's that bursting of laughter that they have when they're just ultimately friends.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And they go in for that one last sweet tender kiss.
The lighting, we always wanted the carriage at night, but the lighting, fucking hell. Yes, we have seen about the aftercare. We are very well aware. We can only applaud. Well done, Colin.
Yep. Love it.
A formative moment for Vegetable.
Formative moment for me. So Colin had already won me over by this point, but I don't know if I've mentioned it on the pod, but I have contamination OCD. And yeah, he gets his little fingering fingers and he hovers them in the air
as he fixes her dress.
As he gently puts her dress back on with his thumb. I'm like, yes. Because if I was Penelope, I would be thinking about that. I'd be like, I'm really happy, but I've essentially got vagina on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And he uses his other hand to pull her out of the carriage.
The sexiest moment for me with that aftercare is when he stroked her hair back.
So delicately.
Yes.
Just his face while he's considering like the fact that he's like, oh my God, I'm about to propose. Like him contemplating that.
When he realizes that he's going to propose and he does that little nod as he comes to that decision.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Well, he's done that before when he's satisfied. In like season 2, I think there was a moment where...
It's like, where's that going satisfied? Choice words.
I think it was when Kate and Anthony are like finally together. He does like a nod, like, oh yeah.
Oh, his little mallet hit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In the epilogue.
Exactly.
Yeah, 2 thoughts before we leave the carriage for me. One, it was the return of Penelope looking at him like he hung the moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it was her first experience sexually, beyond like the kiss, but the amount of trust that she had in him to guide her through that moment was beautiful. And she looked at him with such wonder that we haven't seen her allow herself.
Yeah.
And to really believe in it. Because in the book, what comes across is, and he can get away with it in the book because the relationship is different, it does look like he's just like, oh, let's just get married then. Whereas here, to see that moment, and it isn't just a flippant decision, he thinks through it. And he's like, of course. And he smiles because he's like, I finally get her.
Yeah.
And he gets out the carriage and he hands her a clean hand.
His delivery of the book proposal is so sweet and endearing.
Couldn't be better.
Yeah.
And they're at the Bridgerton house. It's a flip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, let's go inside. Let's get the cake. Let's get the church booked.
Can I also say, I'm so glad this also did not play out in the book where she gets out of the carriage and just falls flat on her fucking face.
Well,
has she left that carriage yet?
I don't think she does fall based on the teaser.
I hope to God she does not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she will.
One quick question. I just want a one-word answer. Do you think we will get another carriage scene in part 2?
No.
Because he's going to meet her at the printers, right? So how the fuck are they going to get home?
I don't know if he's going to meet her at the printers.
I think there's going to be another carriage where he's angry at her.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I think we had the carriage.
I don't think it's going to be a hookup. I think he's going to be pissed at her.
Maybe.
But we'll touch on that in the episode.
Double carriage.
Because if they're at the printers, how are they physically going to get home?
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to meet at the printers.
We know that there's a scene with the printer shop. I don't know if Colin will be there, but at least Penelope will, probably.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the recap. If we've missed stuff, we know.
We know.
Thus concludes this episode of What a Barb, a Polin
I don't
podcast.
get it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
What? No, I don't get to talk about Fran?
It's a bit. Like, I'm doing a bit.
Okay. Sorry.
Ignore Maleki. She's ruining my fun. And thus concludes this episode of What a Barb, a Polin podcast where Obs tries to be funny and fails. And we are now segueing to Beans. Can you give us a little new theme tune? Shh. Pray silence. We are now What a Fran. A Fran podcast. Are we called What a Fran? What a corpse to be.
No.
A Fran podcast.
Oh, God.
From 4 Frans who never would have met without Fran. Lecky, take it away.
Okay. I am so deeply moved by the Fran storyline and so impressed with both Hannah and Victor's acting in these first 4 episodes.
Yay.
Victor Ali confirmed.
Victor Ali is gonna destroy me. Victor Ali is going to destroy my heart. I love him. He's so charming. Go follow him on Instagram. He only has 3,000 followers. He deserves more.
I messaged the others last night after doing my 3rd rewatch and I said I cried in the shower thinking about Fran. I am so moved by their relationship and Victor Ali's performance is so good. His facial expressions and how he physically embodies that character is so compelling to me. There's these moments where he almost seems like kind of like hunched forward when he's standing. And in that scene in the drawing room when he walks in and out, it's almost like he's walking with like his upper body and his torso first.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how he physically embodies that character. And I just love their entire storyline. I love the way he smiles at her in the drawing room when he realizes I say that she too is of the silence.
Yeah.
And I find it so hilarious that we spent months speculating why John was marching down the street with such purpose.
Block 4, part 2.
Block 4, part 2. We thought that maybe drama was going down with like Lady Whistledown and the Bridgertons, and in reality he marches off to get the music rearranged to Fran's liking as a romantic gesture.
Yeah.
How touching is that?
I love how he showed up and like he just stood next to her.
Yeah. Because this is the thing, we knew John was showing up.
Yeah.
We knew who he was played by. We knew it.
Yeah.
And it was just when. And that moment when she was standing outside, we were like, oh my God. And it was just the most beautiful story of the fact that they just wanted silence, and it's the most comfortable silence.
Peace.
Yeah. And the fact that that piece of music, she didn't like it because it was too fast and too loud. And she's grown up in a house which is too fast and too loud for her. And he said to her, I will make the world at your pace for you. I will take this and create this. So I'm not dragging you into this world and making you be a part of the noise. I will transform it. And I'm like, is that not love?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't fucking know.
I identify so much with Fran and John's relationship because I tell every person that I match with or meet up that I really want to find somebody that I'm comfortable being quiet with. And I say it all the time. And to see like something that I adore and something that I want for myself on screen, I love it so much.
He's gonna fucking break our hearts, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
That's some fucked up shit right there, Shondaland.
Do you want to mention the crunching?
Well, you know what? We talked about the Foley artists the other day, didn't we? A few episodes ago. And oh my God, the way they did this was so amazing because one of the hardest things to convey, and yet one of the most important things in sound, can be silence. Yeah. Like silence can be so much more profound. What I loved is when they were together, they let them be silent. When they were in the Bridgerton house together, they were really quiet together. All you could hear was like the movement of them sitting on the sofas. You could like hear the sofa creaking. And it was this beautiful, comfortable silence. And then when Lord Samadani came in, they'd made him the millefeuille pastry, which is a super crunchy pastry. And so you had this silence, which Fran found so much peace in. And then Samadani came in and he made noise and you could hear him crunch, and it was like breaking into her silence, and you could see how uncomfortable it made her. So Foley artists, 10 out of fucking 10.
Yeah, I said they proved that Lord Samadani is not of the silence. Yeah, Fran and John are of the silence, but Lord Samadani isn't.
But you know who isn't going to be of the silence before we wrap up this edition of What a Fran podcast? When Michael enters the story, he is such a different kind of character, and he is louder. He's funny and obnoxious, but in a lovable way. And I think it's going to be so interesting to see how Fran is still drawn to that, and it'll really show you how you can have different types of love with different people. And I can't wait, because I don't want John in the grave, for fuck's sake, but I think that is going to be interesting to see how Fran is drawn to very different character.
I wonder if, with Michael being boisterous, though, if they will notice that Francesca does like silence at times, and so they learn how to be quiet, you know, like they have their moments where they learn from each other.
Yeah, meet her halfway.
Yeah.
My thought, sorry in advance, is that after John dies, that the silence will be too much to bear without him, because they have these moments together where they're comfortable in silence, but when he's gone, that silence just makes her bereft.
He's loud.
So I feel like Michael will find a way to fill that silence, because by then the silence will no longer be a comfort to her. It'll just be a reminder of her pain. Sorry.
Yeah. She's gonna want bagpipes.
I think like that's such a true part of grief that you don't really remember it until you're in it. I often find that like in grief, it's the silence that is just unbearable when someone's gone, because it's like the world doesn't know how to fill the space anymore, and it's just it's too silent.
So when my dad died, for me, I didn't want to sit there and listen to things be silent, so I overworked myself. But honestly, what I needed was to sit there and be still. And so I think the thing is the things you're comfortable with after someone passes and you lose them, your sense of normalcy has changed. And so you try to find a way to fill in that emptiness, to fill in that change of normalcy. And that can go without like loss too, loss of a relationship, whatever. And so the grieving process is so interesting, because it's like you're trying to do everything you can to come back to this sense of normalcy, but the sense of normalcy is not the same because you're no longer sharing with this one person in your life.
Forever gone.
One of the reasons that Fran is so drawn to John is that he's removed from society. He doesn't feel the need to attend society events, etc. So I feel like Fran, in her grief, someone like Michael will bring her back toward society and her family when she needs that connection most.
When she needs connection.
Yeah.
She might think that removing herself is the best way to deal with it, but actually in that moment, that's the part where it's like you need your support group. Thus concludes this episode of What a Fran podcast. Beans, can you do us an honour of very quietly singing us out? Any other last little thoughts about season 3 part 1 before we wrap up?
I love how they humanized Cressida's character. I think Jess Madsen's performance was so great. I said it's giving Draco Malfoy if Harry Potter hadn't snubbed him upon his arrival at Hogwarts.
Very true.
I loved how the Stowells use sign language, and I really hope that plays a bigger role in part 2, that maybe they will have a role in quelling or spreading gossip, and that maybe the fact that Ben has kind of slighted them will come into play. And I also think they're so fixated on Ben that maybe they'll be alerted to something going on with Lady Tilly, who obviously has a secret and possibly an ulterior motive because of that scene with her solicitor where she's basically telling him off and threatening him. And the Lady Tilly foreshadowing, I really think that, like Bean said, that Ben is going to be burned by Lady Tilly, because when he says that he's not afraid of her, she says that is a mistake. And I feel like that is going to be true. My last thought was that it's occurred to me that we haven't seen Colin repaying his debt to Mondrich yet.
Interesting.
Yeah. Martins, who plays Will, said that Colin would be repaying it. Also, something I felt was missing a little bit, and I hope to see later on. We did get the idea from Adjua that there would be a relationship between her and Pen, and potentially it's going to be in the second half because the Queen does the reward. So, you know, that frees up Lady Danbury for that storyline, but is she going to be distracted by the whole Marcus situation? Also, other silly things. I liked the vegetable references.
You were making toast when we were saying it. You've been fucking getting the catch and toast go round.
And for some reason, I'm obsessed with the like guy who does the Crown like family service, who popped on a couple of. I just love it. I don't know what it is about him.
He's like the cake man of season 3, isn't he?
His name is Dundas.
Dundas.
Dundas. My third rewatch I did with subtitles. His last name is Dundas.
I love Dundas.
Regarding Lady Danbury, I wonder if the Lady Danbury-Penelope relationship happens after the engagement because she has that close relationship with the Bridgertons.
Oh, smart.
Maybe now that the engagement has happened, that will be what kind of sparks that friendship between them.
Yeah, maybe.
That was on my list too. I want more Lady D and Pen.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense because we really thought that the Lady Whistledown plot would come in a lot earlier, but the delaying of it until part 2, I think Lady Danbury is going to figure it out, and I think she's going to try and rally around Pen.
Yeah.
I think she's going to spot that in Pen. I would have wanted someone dangling from a balloon. I think I've made that abundantly clear. More Jen. Yeah. We love Penelope.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like she'll be in part 2, though.
I hope so. No Emerald. Clowns.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, because I feel like they keep referencing that there's more than one stone. They use the term sparkler.
Which I don't think any of us were expecting.
No.
Yeah, but the fact that they keep putting out emeralds on all of the journals and everything, I feel like maybe there will still be an emerald thing to come.
Maybe.
We're watching.
And what the hell was the necklace that Nicola covered up?
We'll never know. We must have already seen it because that was episode 1 or 2.
We've had a lot of necklace truther messages. We know. Don't worry about it.
Necklace truthers. I said this last episode, I say it again. A lot of the theories we've said were just to pass the time.
Yeah, flights of fancy.
We're in the after now. We move forward in life. I still maintain we should have had a scene where Colin brought Pen a present back.
Yeah.
And what can you do?
Yeah.
AO3, do your best. You know we're relying on you here.
Beans?
I briefly mentioned this before, but I love the subtlety that Luke has done for Colin.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of small but dramatic gestures, which is why I think I love 2020 Emma so much, because Knightley plays that so well. He cries and all that other stuff, and I really like that we're getting sensitive sad boys to be main characters.
Softer.
Yeah, yes. Sensitive, soft, sad boys.
Even Mr. Finch.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Finch.
Dankworth,
all of them. And I think that's so important. And the thing is Colin is a man who acts on his emotions. And so this is a very different hero character that we've had from other Bridgerton leading men before. I kind of like that we see Colin's lust and stuff like that. We kind of got it with Anthony, but I feel like Anthony, we were also seeing it from Kate's perspective. So he's very much giving that Knightley, subtle, you are my friend, we are friend type vibes from Emma. I don't know if you guys touched on this before I was here, but the Queen does bring up alliance between Whistledown and whatever. She does. Yeah. And so I felt that was a huge hint into what was going into the next season. And I know a lot of people feel like the first few episodes went by very fast. They did. But it's all leading up, I think, to the huge thing of the Lady Whistledown, where we'll see a lot of the meat of the acting from specifically Luke and Nicola. We're going to see a lot of stuff coming from them in that period. And every season, it just builds up to this huge thing. And then from episode 4 onwards, even in episode 6, there's an even bigger beat as well.
I wonder what that's going to be.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. So, I genuinely have loved everything I've seen so far. There are tiny things that I wish were a little bit different, but all in all, I'm so excited to go into the next part. And I read an article that was talking about how Shondaland loves agony and there's no loss of it in this season. And they're but it'll be so interesting to see how Pen and Colin are when they are together against the world. And that's what I think it was the Slate article that said that. So I'm so excited to see them coming together. I think it's going to be emotional and sad. And I can't wait for more Fran. Yeah. I'm so excited.
Well, Jess Brownell mentioned that part 1 was the rom-com and the movie's ended. We're heading into a fucking thriller or something now. But the rom-com tone, there's going to be a turn, which we'll get to in our next episode. Quickly, in one phrase, what surprised you the most? What played out the most differently from what you expected? Can be a scene, location, character, anything. What surprised you or took a turn?
Colin was even more chaotic than I could have dreamed.
We had a bar for him and he fucking vaulted over it.
I know.
Lecky.
I continued to be surprised by the fact that the balloon sequence didn't involve somebody
dangling
in the balloon. Or not even dangling, but in the balloon. I thought that would be a given. I didn't realize that you could potentially be crushed by a balloon basket. It reminded me of one of our friends sent us the gift from Austin Powers with the guy who's about to be crushed, the security guard. He's just waiting for it to run him over. Kind of that vibe.
Well, Hawkins took flight. I don't know that they tethered him, but he was definitely...
No, he took flight, but I figured that somebody would be in the balloon and they would need to save the person in the balloon.
I know, but how did he get back down?
He said it could last 2 hours. So my thought was he would crash 2 hours later on the giant swan, but that was cut.
But what was propelling him? There wasn't any fire. What was making it take flight?
Wind?
Wind.
The wind?
Gossip.
That's a bit of a risky little game to play.
Don't question it. Put it in the epilogue bucket. The epilogue timeline bucket.
Daphne's baby. Colin travelling to 17 cities in 4 months. Have a little nice time there together. I am going to say Osterley. The turn that took.
That was shocking.
I gasped. I was like, oh no. It's like going into a rom-com and it genuinely turning into like
a horror
Saw
movie.
5.
Yeah.
It was horrific. I loved it. It was horrific.
I was going to say Osterley too.
It was that we were gasping though.
Yeah.
We were just...
It was devastated.
Heartbreaking.
And Cressida.
The humanity of Cressida. I'm very interested for part 2.
To talk about her.
Okay, Beans, re-rank your episodes.
What did I say?
You said 3, 2, 4, 1.
3, 2, which I think is what we all said.
I said something vaguely different, I feel like.
You definitely said 2 was your last one.
Oh yeah, you did. You didn't want 2.
I'm gonna go 3, 4, 2, 1.
3, 4, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Veg?
So I'm just going to ignore the brothel scenes.
Yeah, just skip that. Because that takes up 2 of the episodes, babe.
I will go 4, 2, 1.
Okay, I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to go 3, 4, 1, 2.
3. Interesting. Listeners, you'll have to get.
Yeah.
We lost track.
I think if you asked us 5 minutes later, we're going to say a totally different order, so don't read too much into this, guys.
We're tired.
I know.
I'm going to go 2, 4, 3, 1.
That kiss was good.
Do that with what you will, listeners. We've got no conclusions to bring you.
It's hard because I like all of them equally. They're all good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go. We'll be back soon with our reaction speculation over the teaser trailer. In the meantime, as we continue our wait, like Penelope, or like Penelope waiting for Colin for him to come in the garden.
Or Debline waiting to arrive in the Antarctic. So 1 year.
Do you think there's a penguin standing there
A year to get there.
and waiting for him?
It's a long time.
Yeah, fucking hell. Bring a book.
They should use Colin's method of transport because he fucking soared.
Yeah. He's not a reader like Penelope, but it seems like reading would be a really good pastime if you're on a ship for a year.
I know.
What else is he going to do on this ship?
Yeah.
I'm currently rereading Jane Eyre.
Oh, I love... Oh, Lecky hates Jane Eyre and it's my favourite book.
Well, it's just sad.
It's my favorite book too. It's top 10. It's Jane Eyre, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Everything I Never Told You.
Lucky. Where can everyone find us?
And on that note, where can everyone find us? Not on a boat to the Antarctic, but...
Yeah. You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can listen to us either with just your ears on Spotify and other favourite podcast platforms, or with your eyes and your ears on YouTube.
Yeah. Eyes and ears or just the ears. You got to pick one.
Comprehensive experience.
Yeah. Or just eyes, because we do eventually do subtitles. We're working on
And
it.
just look at the lovely collages.
Yes.
Beans, can you sing us out?
Oh, grab somebody sexy, tell him, hey, wanna love on you tonight. Gonna love on you tonight. For all we know, we might not get tomorrow. So baby, let's
Going to the ducks again.
Stick your fingers up Pam's vagina.
Anyway.
Wonderful. Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
A Polin.